amigos on the bay will be.
You can't kill my confidence, you think I'm give a fuck, that's what they do. You can't kill my confidence, you think I'm give a fuck, that's what they do. You can't kill my confidence, you think I'm give a fuck, that's what they tell me. All the fucks I ever gave.
Also join the
What is up, chat? Are we pogging? Are we pog champing? That is the question. That is the question. Oh my god, guys, I had a little bit of a nap today. I don't know if you guys have tried that thing called a nap, but it's actually, I mean, that shit's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It's not gonna lie. I do enjoy a good nap. Oh boy. Okay, man. Holy shit. We got a lot of what is you insert? Okay, well, oopsie. Hold on. Let me mark that we're doing pre-stream conversation now for the editor. There we go. Boom. Why is this so blurry? Dude, I showed off a little guy one time, and it's like, actually, I've decided to be out of focus for the rest of your life. Man, so, what's been going on, guys? There's been a bunch of this drama regarding Mr. Software, Mr. Pirate Software, cool shirt. That I picked it up at Uniqlo, which, by the way, the Uniqlo sizes must have changed recently. Sorry, I got too swole, okay? And their large size didn't fit, so I had to get an extra large. Anyway, now I'm one of those Zoomers who tucks his shirts in because there's too much shirt for me to wear, right? They definitely cut it mad weird, and it's very annoying. Do they have American Uniqlo sizes left? Yeah, now that I'm like waking up from a nap, I'm like kind of sitting here going, what had happened? What happened? You know when you like wake up and you're like in that state? It's like an in-between zone in your mind. You tuck your shirt in? Yeah, that's a common thing. You know, you tuck your shirt in to your pants for some reason. That's like a thing that people do now. I have seen it. It's not imaginary. I'm not making it up. But man, I was kind of just enjoying life, and I did hear about the pirate software stuff a few days ago, but it's been interesting because Mr. Software has responded to it, and it has basically gone off the deep end. So there's a lot here. I watched Ross's video a bit last night. I didn't watch the whole thing, but basically, to explain what Stop Killing Games is. It is trying to input more clear legislation on live service games, right? A lot of it is that, right? So, for example, let's talk about The Crew, because The Crew is something that kind of like sparked it. The Crew, if you guys didn't know, was a live service game, which means it was always online, and it had servers, and basically you could play the game and it was like an MMO racer, right? And then the game was taken offline by Ubisoft, meaning that the game was completely inaccessible to anybody who purchased it, right? And usually this is like, what, 5 to 8 years, depending on the game. I have been on the receiving end of bad times when it comes to live service games. I am the owner of both Battleborn Retail Edition and Lawbreakers. Now, those games might not mean anything to most of you, but if you're a gamer, you might know that I am a sucker, a chump, right? So Lawbreakers is actually a game I played at PAX East, and I was like, damn, this is pretty good. It's by the guy who made Gears of War, Cliffy B, right? Now, Cliffy B being cringe is one thing, but that guy can make a damn shooter. Lawbreakers was pretty fun. Nobody played it. Nobody played it and the game flopped. It was a always online, multiplayer only arena shooter. And it was $40. It was $40 fucking dollars. And I played it for 48 hours. And then they took it offline. And I can't play Lawbreakers anymore despite owning a copy on my Steam account. I also purchased a copy of Battleborn because at the time it was friends wanted to all play it together, and we played Battleborn like once or twice, and then I go back to play Battleborn, and I can't fucking play Battleborn because Battleborn is gone. Diesel, I think you need the recent allegations. I cannot defend you anymore. Why have you only been speaking to me in furry ERP? You I'm not even gonna what what why? So it was very annoying to be a purchaser of these games and basically getting the shit end of a stick, right? I didn't like that. There's probably more. Evolve is another one that somebody mentioned, right? He's a very frustrating person. Yeah, I know a lot of people really hate Thor. Um, I've gone over his other like cringe shit in the past on past streams. So I'm probably gonna focus just on the stop killing game stuff here and not on the Glupshido Olympics of his furry lifestyle and that stuff, right? And noticing your bulgy wolgy. Yeah, I am drinking out of the Two Mad. I am drinking a beverage that they did not sponsor me for out of out of a cursed Two Mad cup. This guy's dead, and there's this anime titty version of him on a cup, and I have that, okay? Yeah, so Evolve is another one. I did not purchase Concord. But Concord is another one that is just like that. Let's see. Maybe I could find some more in my Steam library. I'll do it right now. Let's see. Multiplayer, right? We'll set it by tags. So I have a feeling that Splitgate 2 isn't gonna last a long time. Splitgate 2 is definitely not gonna last. Thank God I didn't pay for it. It's okay. It's like fine. Oh, you know what game they did make offline? It was basically a Diablo-like game called Wayfinder. I was a backer for the Worlds Adrift Kickstarter. Holy shit, dude. I am also I do believe I own Worlds Adrift. Hold on. Yep. I would love to play Worlds Adrift. I remember playing that. I have 24 hours of playtime in Worlds Adrift from when me and my homies were like teens. And I'd love to play it, man, but I can't fucking play it. I would love to play it. I'd host a private server for that. Cause that was sick. The whole Sky Pirates thing is based. But there's a lot of games like that are just gone now because, developers don't either implement these things. If I had known in advance that a copy of a game I paid for would have been taken offline a year or months later, I wouldn't have purchased it, right? So Lawbreakers is probably the worst for me, where I purchased that game and not but 48 hours later, I lost access to it and couldn't get a refund because I was over the 2-hour mark on Steam. And that was like right after the refund system had just came in, right? So it was still like a new thing. But I basically got shit out of luck for that, right? And I honestly, I would have loved to get my money back for that. I really got fucked for that. And the point is, with Stop Killing Games, is that there should be more legislation over how these things work, right? Like, let's say you buy a game, they should tell you, and that's one of the things that was being discussed in the EU, right? They should tell you, like, oh, we're going to shut this game down in 2 years, right? And that should be something that is you're aware of and right? Or it's like, oh, we're going to develop tools so that way you can keep using the game offline, right? Which is what happened with the Crew 2 and Crew Motorsport or whatever the fuck, right? So that's happened. These things have happened. It is possible to do. It is not an impossibility, right? And also, part of this whole like always online games thing has got a lot worse with things like Fortnite and the live service model, right? Where it's like a game exists and then it doesn't because it was a live service and it failed, right? Stop Killing Games may not succeed, but it scared Ubisoft into an end-of-life plan for the Crew. Yeah, so we'll go over Ross's original video or his recent video that kind of kicked this all off. But Yeah, these things you should, as a consumer, be aware of these things, because when you buy software, you should know that that software you're getting, right? I know like the rules are, or whatever the way it works is like you get a license to use it, right? But either way, the fact that we're not privy to any of this information or know what these end of life plans are is an issue. And I'm somebody who makes and sells things, right? Just to be clear, I run a coffee company. It's not the same thing as a games company. But like it's a D&D themed company around that. And something that I've discussed with my brother is like piracy measures, right? Because we're developing TTRPG books, or we're doing board games and stuff like that, and we have stuff that we're working on, and we've talked about like, okay, what do we do about piracy or anything like that? And we basically came to the conclusion, why the fuck should we put anything on it? Not only is it very difficult to do that with PDFs, you can, by the way, there are ways to do it. I've seen it. It's not something I'd want to do, and it's kind of against the ethos of that industry, right? Like as a tabletop, like those books are meant to be shared. That information is like disseminated, right? It's part of the culture. Which I mean, ultimately is like a pro piracy measure, but also this guy's name is Pirate Software, so I find his name very interesting. That Pirate Software, look inside, no piracy, please, right? But the way I look at it as somebody who makes stuff that's more like physical is that like especially for like books, right? Because that's something big that we're working on. Please finish the birdie stream. I will. But as somebody who's like working on that, it's just like it if somebody wasn't going to purchase my thing, they weren't going to do that anyway, right? I don't look at it as like a lost purchase. I just go, they probably weren't going to spend the money anyway, and at least this way they get access to it, which is a reasonable line of thought that I've heard from other people too. From what I understand about Thor, Heartbound, and the other games he has / is working on, he has a vested interest in something like Stop Killing Games not succeeding. Yes. So I had said this in my server today, before we get into this video, is that his position at Off-Brand, and his position with the games he's making, put him. He is like diametrically opposed to Stop Killing Games, right? So he should just be honest that it's like, listen, the live service model is what allows us to pay our developers well. I can't support Stop Killing Games because it could put my developers out of work, right? Or something like that, right? Like a really like passive businessman stance, right? And it's kind of fucked, but it's ultimately better because it's very easy to hand wave away when it's a position like that, right? When you go, oh, we need the live service model in order to fund the things that we're working on, you can kind of hand wave away. It's like, okay, well, he can't support Stop Killing Games because his business model doesn't support it, which is true. I don't think his business model does support it with Rivals of Aether 2. It's not going to work, right? I feel like it's not meant for that kind of game, right? But then personally, you should know as a consumer and be able to not spend money on that. I don't think you should have to spend money on that. Yeah, his dad is a former employee of Blizzard. Or well, yeah, I don't think he's at Blizzard anymore. But yeah, it's like this one the problem is even if Thor has the best of intentions, which I don't think he does, but even if he did, where the road meets the rubber, Thor is always going to be on the opposite side of the aisle with Stop Killing Games, because a thing like Stop Killing Games will just hurt the bottom line of that company, right? It's just, it is what it is. And listen, I know battle passes are annoying. I'm very tired of the battle pass treadmill, of all that stuff, right? It's annoying to buy a game and then I now have like a second job because of the way they've like systematically psychologically profiled 40 billion people in order to make the most drip feed of content possible. I don't particularly like that. I find it very stressful. It takes away the fun of a game, right? But if it works for Rivals of Aether, I understand why, it's not going to have an offline mode, right? But yeah, ultimately he's a corpo masquerading as a little guy, right? I'm not asking Thor to support Stop Killing Games. Maybe some of his fans were asking that, but ultimately I don't want Thor to support it. I don't even think he needs to say anything about it. He never did. I think a lot of these dramas and a lot of dramas in general could just be, so I know I say this all the time on stream. Drama can be ended by you not saying anything, right? Again, yeah, there's nothing wrong with being business focused. You should just be honest about it. I think there are ways to get away with live service without being terrible, but it's a necessary evil. Yeah, it's like, I feel I like what the Helldivers guys at Arrowhead Games are doing, where it's like, I buy a battle pass, I have it forever. I know one day I will not be able to play Helldivers 2, and I hope that Arrowhead will do something so I can play it offline, right? I hope that happens one day. But I do appreciate that the battle pass is forever. All right? That's better. It just is better. It's better than what I get with like Fortnite, where I'm constantly like on a treadmill and I need to play it a bunch in order to get my money's worth, right? It's very stressful. It's interesting, right? Because Stop Killing Games, in my opinion, and the way I look at it, views video games as art that should be preserved. But a lot of the industry is kind of like in an in-between spot, right? Some of games are considered art, some games are considered a product. And because this is this weird kind of conflict between those two, we have things where games get shuttered after 3 to 5 years because they're losing a profit, like KJ is saying in the chat, right? Like, it's ultimately, those things are just so at conflict with each other that it's kind of difficult to have this conversation, right? Because there's a lot of people who view video games as a product, right? A lot of the culture war stuff with video games kind of views games more as a product. I don't really think they view it as art. They might, but it just doesn't seem like that when I see the arguments. And then alternatively, you have stuff like Death Stranding 2, which is, in my opinion, art, but it also has features to it that just won't work 10 years from now because of its online functionalities. It's the same thing with the regular Death Stranding. I don't know what the infrastructure is like in Death Stranding now, because you could build infrastructure with a community of people, right? So I don't know what it's like now versus back then. So I know some of my, I think what one of my mods was playing Death Stranding. I'm sure they could tell me if it's a little different. I played Death Stranding at launch. There was no support. There was no like any of that because me and the rest of the players hadn't built anything, right? But yeah, there's so much junk everywhere now. What's your stance on console warring and the fanboys who participate in it? Get a job application. Here you go. Job application. Job application. Here. Work a 9 to 5, bitch. There's so many roads now, and Death Stranding 1s is great for me driving my truck. But that's a different experience. And 10 years from now, when we go to play Death Stranding, it's also going to be a different experience because there might not be an online component to it anymore, which is, it is what it is. But like we need to be able to preserve games, because if we view games as art, and I would hope that Thor views games as art, but if we view games as art, there is an inherent quality that needs to be preserved about the crew. Now, you and I can say that the crew isn't high art, and I would agree with that. But there is hundreds of thousands of man hours that painstakingly went in to developing a scaled version of the entire United States. Remember, the crew was considered a big deal when it first came out, because the crew was saying, oh, this is the biggest, most amount of road ever, right? Oh, you have the entire continental United States to drive on. That was a big fucking selling point. And that was a lot of work for those developers. So even if we don't get the crew back, getting access to that piece of work by those artists, by those skilled artists, because Ubisoft, for what it's worth, is filled with skilled artists. I know they make slop, right? But some of those guys that make slop there go on to make Expedition 33, right? So those are pieces of art, right? And I think those should be preserved, right? I went to art school, guys. I think art should be cherished, even the lowest form of it. My issue with Thor, slight spoiler, he offers zero solutions regarding what Stop Killing Games stands for, which is game archiving. TV might not be considered art by some, but there are multiple measures for archival. Yeah, there's still no really amazing measures for archival for video games, and it's a problem. It's a problem, and it needs to be solved. And Stop Killing Games is presenting a solution to that. Is it the only solution possible? No, but there should be ways for people to experience this, because a lot of this is history, whether or not we want to say it is or not. I do feel the crew has some artistic merit because of its scale. There are plenty of other games that are terrible, but I think they offer interesting things. Battleborn is a bad game. I don't think it's a very good game. But what's interesting about Battleborn is it was existing at a time when the idea of a MOBA shooter was novel and new. And it just lost because I feel like it was a little early to the game. I feel like it would have existed if it came out now. But it got here early and it suffered for that. And now nobody can ever experience what that was like. But you, as a consumer, should be able to know these things, right? You should be able to know, oh, if I buy this now, I won't be able to access it in 2 years. And gauge whether or not that's a purchase you want to make. You know, I think you should have, I think as a consumer, you should have some rights. I remember a game called Dirty Bomb. Oh my God, Dirty Bomb. I remember that. I played that. Oh my God. I get so mad that people don't care about how you rented games from the library / drug store when I was a kid. But yeah, so we'll get to all of that, and we will now react Andy to Stop Killing Games. I might play a video game because this is just Ross talking. So we'll see. But yeah, Mr. Gamer, that question will be answered.
This is probably the final update to the Stop Killing Games campaign. Though I'm coming at you a little bit like a time traveler would. It'll make sense in a minute. As a refresher, Stop Killing Games...
So you guys might be wondering who Ross is. Ross has been a YouTuber for more than a decade. He's been around since Machinima was around, right? That's how long he's been around. Some of you might not even know who Machinima is, or what Machinima is, or what the generic noun version of Machinima is. Some of you might not know what Freeman's Mind is. That's how long he's been around. I've been watching Freeman's Mind since the start. You get a veteran's discount, dude. You're summoning the dead again. But that's how old this is. Okay, that's how long Ross has been a YouTuber. Ross has been a YouTuber longer than Pirate Software, okay? I know he's not as big as Pirate Software, but he definitely gets veterans discount, bro.
It's a consumer movement to stop publishers from effectively destroying video games they have already sold to customers. Now, we've gone about this in many ways, but it's easiest to divide this up by things we've already done and things we can still do, because there's about a dozen things we've already done. Yeah, in fact, here's a list if you want to pause this.
Let's see. Things to Stop Killing Games campaign has done. Submit complaints to the European Consumer Centers Network for multiple countries. Dead end, no consistency at all from the offices, was redundant at best. Submit a petition to Canadian Parliament on the destruction of games. You know, these it's really terrible. We're not like in like the dark world, right? But it's just like, why did I make the goal 30 minutes? That was
Watermelon
oopsie.
emoji, watermelon emoji, watermelon emoji.
I made the goal like
Bring on
30
the
minutes for
fruit.
some reason. That was my bad. But it's like consumer advocacy groups are in a really bad spot right now. You know, here in the States, it's pretty fucking bad. It just seems like the world over, you as a consumer exist like in a different world than the guys that make the decisions, right? Listen, man, we're not in like the cyberpunk dystopia yet, but it's getting there, okay? Like it's feeling that way sometimes. Let's see, make contact with the BEUC to influence EU commissions. It's ongoing. So it's like it's in a rough spot with Stop Killing Games.
Going over this again will be a video in itself. I'll talk more about some of this towards the end. So that just leaves things we can still do, which are only 2 items. One is for the UK to sign a government petition to bring this issue before Parliament. Though, keeping it real, I'm not terribly optimistic about this one, since the government response has been a mess by every definition. It's a long and boring story, but the short version is it's hit a bureaucratic roadblock and will stay stuck unless it gets more signatures. But the one that has a lot of power, so much so I think it could change the course of gaming history, is the European Citizens Initiative. Now, I said I'm approaching this like a time traveler because with the trajectory we're on, these are both going to fail. So I figure, why wait until they actually do to tell people? Both the petitions end in July. The Citizens Initiative in particular on July 31st. This video probably won't change the timeline, it's just a last-ditch attempt to wake people up on it. The European Citizens Initiative failing kind of stings. Again, this one is crazy powerful, but the hurdle we just couldn't get past was that it requires 1 million signatures from citizens of EU countries. And we've only made it.
If you're an EU citizen and you care about this as a subject, you can go find it and sign it yourself as an EU citizen. Okay? You can also go sign this thing if you live in the European Union.
Just under halfway.
That's a wild requirement.
That's really too bad, because I have high confidence this would have solved the problem of publishers destroying video games. Now, why do I say that? What a lot of people don't realize is that in the EU especially, it's almost a state of lawlessness regarding the practice of game destruction. Okay, I don't want to put people to sleep here, but the quick legal argument is that the vast majority of games with an online requirement say they can be terminated at any time for any reason.
That is crazy, by the way, okay? What if I'm, like, playing my video game that came out a week ago, and they're like, hey, this game only sold 10 copies, shut it down. Like, that's crazy.
Or Blizzard likes to say any or no reason. But
That's crazy. That's crazy. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. You should know. I think you should know. Okay? It's just like with Apple doing the thing where they're like, we need to use the lightning plug because it's better. And then it was like very clear they could use the USB-C. And it took like the European Union stepping in to say, hey man, we're reducing electrical waste. So we're going to all move to the USB-C format. And then Apple was like, okay. If buying isn't owning, pirating isn't stealing. Listen, man, I know a lot of YouTubers who learned and built their careers having pirated their software. For real, okay? There's no problem with that. Some of that shit's expensive.
Uh-oh. According to the EU Commission, that might be a violation of Directive 93/13 EEC, which protects consumers against unfair terms and consumer contracts.
Would you ever pirate software? I'm not saying I have. But I'm not saying I wouldn't do it.
If that term is unfair, that means that part of the contract is null and void. And if it's null and void, then what does the law say about how long your purchase lasts? Well, it doesn't. That's the whole mess. So if there are no legal guidelines, what are consumer expectations for how long video games last? Well, indefinitely. Even the average online multiplayer video games from the 90s can still work today if you didn't change the hardware or software. So the law wasn't written for this situation, the industry's terms might possibly be illegal, and traditional expectations are games last indefinitely. Now, of course, publishers can't support games indefinitely, but by not giving expiration dates or end-of-life plans, that might be the situation they've put themselves in. I cannot emphasize enough what a mess this is. If you were an impartial judge just trying to interpret the law, you'd have a
Hey, Dad. That's said so, like, nonchalantly, you know? It's like some people are like, hi, Poppy, in chat, and it's just like, okay, well, that makes sense. But just like, hey, Dad, it's just... It's said with like a clinicalness, you know?
headache. I don't know what you would do. You'd probably tell the EU Commission they need to make a law on this because this is a glaring omission.
Upset that it wasn't enthusiastic enough. Yes, I was upset it wasn't enthusiastic enough.
So being in the middle of this quagmire right now, if we had rolled up with 1 million signatures demanding that the EU give us basic consumer rights for video games, that would have been the easy way out for regulators, because then they would have a mandate. That's
Hello, Goon Guy is wild.
I meant about my half-joke slide about politicians liking easy wins. This situation is such a mess that trying to settle this under existing law is more work than creating laws under a consumer mandate. And thanks to the action we pushed at consumer protection agencies, doing nothing is no longer an option for multiple countries. We've made sure of that. But none of that matters because the initiative is failing. Now, my original thought was that ironically, it's difficult to get gamers to care about games because a whole lot of people are cruising at maximum apathy these days. But
Yeah, I've seen that a lot where it's like people just are like, I'm too tired and I feel like nothing ever matters or makes a difference, right? Like there's a lot of that kind of going around, and it's just like, you can't be that way. I know you want to be that way, but if you want to be the change you want to see in the world, you need to not be apathetic to everything. Okay? I know us Zoomers, and to a lesser extent the millennial generation, are sitting here going like 9/11 happened and it's been downhill since, but we are getting older. We can make a difference. We need to be participatory in the systems that exist in our world. Yes, I am saying be the change you want to see in the world.
I think it's more than that. For most of the past year, the initiative has bounced back and forth between being the third and second
FPS stands for Father Papa Senior.
most popular active initiative in the EU. The only ones that topped it were far more serious social issues. So that says to me, the problem isn't getting gamers to care about games, it's getting people to care about anything. And frankly, that is a checkmate move.
That's true. I think the pandemic kind of broke a lot of people's brains. I feel like people are just let I don't know, it's just like we let ourselves become apathetic husk.
If people can't care enough to write their name on a form to protect their rights and stop things they care about from being destroyed, then yeah, I can't do much with that. I am not a Care Bear that can shoot light out of my stomach to make people give a damn. Plus, it's hard to know how many people don't care and how many never knew about the initiative in the first place. It's certainly not for a lack of trying. I have tried to push this everywhere I can, though I'm an amateur at all of this. I have a medium-sized YouTube channel for making comedy videos involving gaming. That's it for my advantages. Now, I've tried to leverage this to push the initiative, get as much help as possible, but I've never been great
Why
at
is this guy posed like this? Usually Ross isn't on camera, I should say that, okay? He's usually not, you know, like, it's not like this. He's like a different kind of, he's not Gen X. I do think he's like an elder millennial, but like, he gives like Gen X nerd vibes, like a different creature of nerd that is like slowly dissipating from the world.
And networking.
Yeah, this is the gaming dungeon that he talks about.
Campaign.
I need to like move this up. It's kind of off my head.
I never wanted to do any of this. I've been beating the drum on the problem of game destruction going on 10 years now, but the problem only got worse and worse, and nobody was doing a damn thing about it. So when the opportunity to do something finally presented itself in the form of the biggest game shutdown from a European company, I pounced on it as hard as I could. So I've hated doing almost every aspect of this campaign.
Oh shit.
And would be very happy for it to end. But I would have hated myself even more if nobody stepped up to do anything. So in light of that, I think our exposure has been phenomenal. We've gotten a lot of support or just fair coverage from major YouTubers. Some ordinary gamers, Young Ye, Louis Rossman has been a bro especially. Gamers Nexus, Linus Tech Tips, Game Linked, Philip DeFranco.
So I like that Louis Rossman is participating in this because this shows why this thing is important, right? And for a lot of you that are like, who the fuck cares about this, right? Ultimately, Stop Killing Games exists within a realm of like consumer advocacy and right to repair. And that is such an important thing that I don't think people realize. The fact that there are companies out there that could like literally hold you over a pot of oil because you went to go fix your John Deere truck yourself is bananas, okay? Like, I can't believe that is a thing that even existed. That John Deere could just withhold your ability to use your tractor as a farmer, okay? Because you wanted to repair it yourself. Like, that's bananas.
Asmongold, Black Panther, Second Wind, including Yahtzee and the other Frost, Spawn Wave, Civi 11, Mandalore Games, Bellular News, Digital Foundry, Josh Strife Hayes, Tech Tangents. Honestly, it goes on and on. I'm leaving out a lot of people. My apologies on that. We've gotten game news outlet coverage. PC Gamer, IGN, Rock Paper Shotgun, Kotaku, TechSpot, Eurogamer, PC Games N, Destructoid, Game Rant. There's more. And regular news outlets, Metro, Euronews,
That's crazy.
Variety, Forbes, also many non-English outlets.
This is ultimately a good thing. This is ultimately a good thing, right? Like, isn't there a Philip K. Dick story about a dishwasher that runs on a subscription service?
20 months of membership. Love for Mr. Pookie from Surgery Recovery Land.
Right,
Red
but it's
heart
like
emoji.
ultimately surgery. I almost said surgery based. Surgery not based. I'm glad you're okay. Surgery based. Yeah, ultimately, if you're not a huge gamer and you don't care about games, I understand why you wouldn't care about Stop Killing Games. But Stop Killing Games exists in like this realm associated with consumer right to repair and consumer rights. So if you think you have a right to fix your dishwasher, you could find yourself very much in the same camp as Stop Killing Games.
France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Hungary, there's a lot. And some developers running with scissors.
Surgery cringe. Surgery cringe, FPS Diesel.
Landfall Games, Mala Industria Games, Octay, those awesome guys, and developers of emulators like Dolphin, PCSX2, and PPSSPP, and some more indie developers I may have lost track of, I'm sorry. And this last one is hearsay, but it's my favorite if true. Developers from Ubisoft Ivory Tower. The people who made The Crew, which is...
Dude, I set up a new HP printer recently, and the HP printer wanted to sign me up for a subscription service and said that my printer would work better if I subscribed to the HP Printer Inc. service. I shouldn't have my printer shouldn't have like features withholden from me because I didn't pay for a subscription service. I'm sorry. There's no world where printers suck. The printer can't work any better. Like, the printer's shit.
The game we used to get all this action rolling in the first place. Yeah, it turns out a lot of developers who spend years of their lives working on something don't like seeing it destroyed by publishers. Who'd have thought? And I've been saying yes to almost all offers for interviews, questioning, or any kind of outreach opportunities that came our way. I honestly don't know how many interviews I've done on this issue at this point. It's easily dozens, though not all of them were on video. One was even for BBC Radio. And then there would be the spontaneous offers that would...
What the fuck? Is that Jack? Is that Jack of Red Letter Media? What is Jack is sitting with Yahtzee? Wait, Sebastian, isn't that guy with that really nice voice that I covered that one time? Isn't he that like games journalist with a really nice voice? I think that Sebastian guy follows me. Very based voice, very based.
Pop up throughout the entire campaign. Like working with members of European Parliament to push through questions to the EU Commission. Having meetings with the
Jack's main job is that podcast. I did not know that.
EUC as another route to the EU Commission. Meetings with representatives from GOG. That one was looking promising until they fired the representatives we were talking with, then backpedaled. So the HP like subscription service is like
it was saying that there are extra features that would help my printer do more if I paid for it. That's what it was like pitching me on.
Hey Dad, I need help getting through the rind of this watermelon.
Yeah.
Sucked. Meetings with representatives from Heineken. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. Heineken, of all companies, supports the initiative because it ties in well with some gamer lounge campaign they have going. That one was going to be a huge boost for us, but they ended up having to postpone it a year, which is too late. I've had meetings with Fudo, F-Camp. Probably the funniest of these was another member of European Parliament who is also on the Committee on Culture and Education. Their staff reached out to me, set appointments, canceled, then kept having to reschedule 3 times. And this is all on top of the data.
So Fudo, I believe, belongs to Louis Rossman, and what is Kino Corner, who's a film YouTuber? I believe he works for them.
Day outreach, organizing, and just basic communication with God knows how many people. Again, I've hated doing this because I have to fight all my instincts not to bother people. I hate being a pest, but you kind of have to do some of that when campaigning. At this point, I've written a couple thousand emails connected to the campaign, trying to do outreach, research, and
it's the load-bearing O in Fudo is wild. I do believe Solar Sands also participates in Fudo as well.
Keeping things together. I haven't done that much on Twitter because I don't have much of a presence there. Same goes for Reddit. Yeah, Reddit. I received so many reports of promotions of the initiative being deleted. And some of the ones that stayed up are some of the most hostile to the initiative that I've seen. Yeah, isn't Reddit just a wonderful place to be nowadays? We did get a Discord launched where people could independently organize, so I wouldn't be bottlenecking anything if others had better ideas on what to do. I believe currently they're trying to contact TV stations about this in Europe, something I never would have had a clue how to do. That's exactly the sort of thing that I was hoping would emerge. Yeah, I really want to emphasize that from the second the initiative launched, nothing had to go through me. It's been there, in public, this entire...
Chud Logic's part of Fudo, but I think he joined because he misread the name.
time, with easy...
Is anyone else going to mention Pirate Software as a gay furry? I mean, who cares? I mean, ultimately, it's like cringe, but like, His the his Pirate Software's position on this is 1,000,000,000 times worse than anything else because of the damage it could do to other people.
Multilingual guides at stopkillinggames.com. We blazed a trail to make it easy for others to act on this, but that wasn't enough. So it feels like I've been running a rickshaw carrying people to the destination to safety.
I'd be more worried about Thor's history would be more suspect if he wasn't those two things, if he wasn't those two adjectives.
Except it's breaking down halfway. The work on this
Yeah, him being a queer furry doesn't affect legislation like this did. Yeah. Dude, Pirate Software's involvement in this drama is worse than any single cringe ERP message he could have done. Okay?
has never stopped. I never wanted my involvement on the campaign to last this long. I kept hoping after launch, somebody with more reach and better at campaigning could just point people to the destination and get it done. But no, I've had to keep hauling that rickshaw. Not every week, but there have been many weeks on the campaign where I've been working 12 to 14 hours a day to keep things moving.
This guy is working as a grassroots politician for this policy. He's not making a single fucking cent off of it. Okay? Like, the thing is we as people, and I know you've done this before, chat, right? You sit around and you complain about a thing in your life, okay? And you're like, somebody should do something about this. Well, chat, you live in a society and you could do something about it, right? You could even run for local government, right? Like, it's crazy. Like, you can just do that. But the thing is a lot of us don't. And a lot of us don't really pick up and put on those boots and get out that door in the morning, right? Ross is doing something a lot of us said we would do, but he's actually doing it, right? He's saying, okay, this is thing I care about. I'm going to do something about it.
And the only way I was even able to do that was to burn some of my savings and put everything else on hold. I've been kind of stupid about this because it's our only shot. Again, this is an amateur effort. That means there's no staff and no salary. So if I need help with something and ask a volunteer to help with it and they disappear on me, well, then they disappear on me and I need to do it myself. Or if I can't, then I need to hunt down someone else to help with it and hope they don't disappear on me. Meanwhile, my channel has been suffering, as my viewers can tell you. I'm stretched too thin. Now, I have been maybe fairly criticized for not running a fundraiser for this. There are reasons for that. The first is, until recently, I didn't know where we would spend it. People would say, buy ads. But the initiative could be considered political. And YouTube doesn't allow political ads in a lot of EU countries.
Unironically, if the Stop Killing Games thing took off, you'd see a ton of studios kill their games because of the fear of paying pennies to future-proof their game. Dude, the immense amount of insane live service games that we're getting, it's just like a direct result of like the live service ecosystem existing, right? These games are incredibly expensive to produce and the risk is really high, right? But they read how Fortnite does as an executive and go, I want some of that pie. And the thing is, you're not going to get some of that pie, right? And it's just like, it ultimately is making the ecosystem worse, right? Where it's like, you look at movies, for example, where you see all of these like Marvel movies coming out. And then as a result, like directorial, like a director's movie, like Sinners, is very rare, right? Like that's a very rare movie to come out. It just doesn't happen. And it's a lot of the same thing with live service games, where live service games kind of inhabit that same space as those big risky movies.
And neither does Twitch. Good luck reaching gamers without YouTube or Twitch. So taking money with no plan, that's a grift. And another reason is I am one of the worst people.
Yeah, taking money with no plan, that's a grift. Ross is doing a really smart thing right now. One of the things that Pirate Software accused him of is being a grifter. But yeah, to be a grifter, you would need to ask for money without a plan.
Manage that sort of thing. Financial paperwork is an Achilles heel of mine and seems
unironically, Avengers and then Kill the Justice League and such seem to be live service, but clearly because it's a hot thing right now and they've yet to turn a profit. Yeah, I think Kill the Justice League is going to be put out the pasture soon. Okay? And it's just like that game is the end of like the Arkham verse from, and also, by the way, that game is like the last performance of Kevin Conroy as Batman, and that's going to go away one day and nobody will be able to play it. That should be like, that's a fucking problem. If anybody gives a shit about like Diesel, Kill the Justice League has already put out the pasture. Well, it hasn't been, because I know people who have played it recently. I know it's not receiving any more updates, but can you still get online and play it? Because I do believe you still can.
Me 10 times more effort than anything else. I mean, I can do accounting, budgeting, math. That's not a problem.
Here, I'll
No,
pull
I
it
mean
up on
having
my,
knowledge of all the
Steam.
obscure forms you need to fill out, what all the tax laws.
Why is my
apply
Steam
are,
up here?
What all the
Why
specialized
to do that?
terminology is, and just all the hidden rules. Now you might say, just hire an international tax accountant.
Why is it
multiple
up here?
countries.
Why is there? Okay.
There goes a third of
Hi,
our funding.
Steam.
Then. So what are we even doing?
Well, now
I cannot emphasize how
Why
much
did
I
that
struggle
happen?
with
Why did that
financial
come up?
business crap like that. So the thought of me putting together a fundraiser for what might be considered a political fund that needs to adhere to laws in multiple countries, and if I make a mistake, that could be considered a crime.
Update repo Diesel.
That's like asking some.
Here we go. They are allegedly adding an offline mode. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Why do you have 275 hours in Grandma Gooners? I don't even... You know how hard it is to get a game to work? And then for it to just, like, pull up Steam, like, no questions asked? I was playing Bogo's Binted recently, chat. Really missing out on Bogo's Binted. Install Everhood. I will do that. That sounded like I won't, but I will. I have wanted to play it. It's been on my wish list.
Somebody with severe dyslexia to write a book report on war and peace. I am the wrong person for that job. But I've still been trying, to the best of my ability anyway. I didn't discover this until late in the process, that even though general ads were out, sponsored messages were still an option for some countries. And some mysterious benefactors emerged offering to pay them directly. But that means I needed to find all these channels and broker all these deals. So as a last-ditch effort, I've been looking through hundreds of targeted non-English gaming channels trying to find good candidates for this. Then work with bilingual liaisons for each language, then try to put together a contract and figure out what a good offer is for the amount of views we expect. I am so out of my depth on this, but I'm still trying. At this point, I've browsed through more clickbait AI-generated thumbnails than I have the entire rest of my life. I honestly can't decide which part of the campaign I've hated the most. Acting as an advertising broker, not knowing our budget or what's a good offer, or trying to research laws governing this practice that don't exist, except I didn't know that at the time. So how are these sponsored ads going? Are they going to get us the signatures? As of recording this, I don't know. It's a Hail Mary pass as it is. I'm just going to assume it won't, and I'm completely spent on ideas on how to get more signatures. I did everything I possibly could to make this campaign work. It wasn't enough. Or rather, I did everything that made sense to me. I did receive a lot of suggestions of things I do not think would have worked. A bunch of people told me to make short form videos on this. I tried that. They got a fraction of my usual views.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. God, he's fighting a really uphill battle. I don't envy it at all, dude. Jesus.
I'm told make more videos on my channel saying the same thing. But lots of views on my channel doesn't help if it's all the same audience, because people can only sign once. We have to reach new audiences. I've been told become a full-time streamer. I might consider it if I thought it would work, but I don't. I've been told I should have made a bigger deal about countries crossing minimum thresholds. Well, I didn't want to celebrate that because that's an arbitrary number. They're the minimums. All that really matters is that 1 million number, and we're a long ways away. Now, another suggestion
I hope he hits the million number, dude. This is fucking just terrible, bro, to hear this. It's rough because I've been watching this guy since I was like a teenager, bro. It's really rough.
been to make a plea to big gamers like PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, Moist Critical, Markiplier.
Dude, little did he know. Jesus himself would come down.
Like that. Well, yeah, I think that might be a great idea. Our biggest obstacle in the campaign has always been getting enough exposure, and they have exposure. I think any one of them could end this with one video and change gaming history. Problem is, I have no idea how to reach any of them. Plus, I can understand if they might shy away from this. First, they're probably busy people. But second, they may not want the kind of heat that comes with changing gaming history, even if it's for the better. And third...
And it's crazy, too. It's such a This is, if you are not a publisher or business executive, this is a really easy one to support. It's really hard to be anti-consumer advocacy when you don't have any skin in the game. If you have zero skin in the game, is there a US petition? No. This is, so here's one of the things that Ross has talked about. Ross has talked about why he's targeting the EU because it's harder in the US and you need more money to be a participating voice in government like this, right? So he's deliberately targeting the EU first because the barrier to entry is lower. And if you start a change there, it'll be easier for that change to happen in the United States later. And that was his reasoning behind it. And yeah, petitions are worth less than toilet paper here. Yeah, America isn't big on the petitions. What they really like to see is a lot of bread, a lot of money. That's why it's been difficult, even for Right for Repair, you know? And it's just like it's again, if you're not like an executive or you don't have some skin in the game where you need to be anti-consumer, it's really hard to put yourself on the opposite aisle when it comes to Right to Repair. Even for a politician, it's really easy to be Right for Repair if you're Republican or Democrat. So it's really crazy when you get politicians that aren't that, because it's like, it's really hard. The position that Pirate Software has put himself in is the most clearly evil position you could put yourself in. It would have been easier for Pirate Software to say nothing, okay? Because the political position he's put himself in is just the hardest one possible.
If they back this, then 1 million people might mob them to back something else, and then there's no end to it. So I actually can understand some people wanting...
The main difference is that an EU initiative is actually a lot stronger than a petition. It'll put the issue on the docket. They can't avoid it.
...to sit this out. I mean, yeah, it really sucks that we can't get enough attention on this badly needed change in the games industry, but I'm not shocked either.
There's like a whole bunch of things that are like a problem with the games industry, right? A lot of the games industry is contract work. It's the same for film, right? So like your workers' rights are kind of pretty bad if your contract's bad. Unions are a lot rarer from what I hear. That might not be, you know, the reality of it. It might be a lot more varied than that, but from what I've been told, it's not really common. It's just Heartbound is a live service. Well, with the lack of production on it, it might as well be.
Honestly, I'm already punching way...
Yeah, he's working at a live... Yeah, Rivals of Aether 2. Yeah.
Way above my weight class on this. My main promotion video for it got a little under 250,000 views, and about 15% of my audience is from EU countries who are eligible to sign. So that means I shouldn't have expected much more than 30 to 40,000 signatures from my audience, and we're over 10 times that.
So I'm confused. Is this Pirate Software speaking right now? No, this is the guy that Pirate Software basically tried to ruin.
It's almost like a lot of people out there don't like having their games destroyed. Anyway, most of the criticism I've seen for how I've run this campaign kind of comes down to be more popular. Yeah, sure, maybe everybody else knows how to do that. I don't. I kind of view that critique as similar to don't be poor financial advice.
And you know, I've watched a lot of Ross's video essays on video games. He's actually got a lot of really well. He's not stupid. Ross is not stupid.
And that's from people who support the campaign. For all the support and fair coverage we've received, there's been some opposition too. Though I want to say 80, maybe even 90% of people who are against the initiative are against it because they think it's doing something it's not. For example, the #1 criticism about the initiative that we've never been able to shake is that it's unworkable because you can't expect publishers to support games forever. Yeah, we know. That's why we've never asked for that. I must have said...
Yeah, that was one of the things that Thor levied against Ross, is where it's like, Thor presented Ross's initiative as trying to get publishers to support games forever, and that just never was what this was, right? It's that, like, have an end-of-life plan, so that way the consumer knows this game is going to be shut off and you'll lose access to it, or present the game in a way that it can be played offline in perpetuity because you actually own it.
But this 100 times now. It was written on the website from day one, but this keeps coming up over and over.
We'll go read the website. We'll go read the website. Oh, God. I bring it up, yeah. Acknowledge. Dude, they're half the way there. They're half the way there. Where's the FAQ? How are publishers destroying video games? An increasing number of video games are designed to rely on a server the publisher controls in order for the game to function. This acts as a lifeline to the game. When the publisher decides to turn this off, it's essentially cutting off the life support of the game, making it completely inoperable for all customers. Companies that do this often intentionally prevent people from repairing the game, also by withholding vital components. When this happens, the game is destroyed because it can never operate again. Diesel, if it passes or not in Europe, the US side will try to lobby against it here. You don't know that. We literally don't know that. Which makes it difficult to push for this unless there is enough backing here, both in the movement and money, which is why this has been tied into the right for repair discussion, by the way. Okay. And then 2 is also why we need to be participatory people in our republic in order so that way we can make our voice known. I understand that PACs and other political entities have a oversized sway in that, but there is a lot of push in the States for right to repair, which is why we should continue to talk about it, because it's good and sensible and it's great. Okay. I think what Louis Rossman is doing and the politicians that support it are doing is good. I think that's good. Let's see. Isn't it impractical, if not impossible, to make online-only multiplayer games work without company servers? Not at all. The majority of online multiplayer games in the past functioned without any company servers and were conducted by the customers privately hosting servers themselves and connecting to each other. Games that were designed this way are still playable today. As to the practicality, this can vary significantly. If a company has designed a game with no thought given towards the possibility of letting users run the game without their support, then yes, this can be a challenging goal to transition to. If a game has been designed with that as an eventual requirement, then this process can be trivial and relatively simple to implement. Another way to look at this is it could be problematic for some games of today, but there's no reason it needs to be that way for games of the future, which is true.
Again. See, that's the thing. As soon as you say 3 words on requiring end-of-life plans, gamers especially will jump to some conclusion, and I never know where they're going to land. Ironically, non-gamers tend to be much better at understanding the initiative, because they're not coming with a whole bag full of assumptions. A couple other criticisms are how this would violate copyright law by forcing publishers to give up their intellectual property. No, it wouldn't. Some of you may want to pause this part.
The initiative wouldn't conflict with copyright law for 2 reasons. 1, the customer would have no additional rights beyond what they were sold in the first place, the ability to run a copy of the publisher's game. The only difference between now would be the publisher would no longer be able to permanently revoke the license without any fault of the customers, i.e. hacking, online cheating, etc. By the way, one of the most irritating things about like games now is that like games that don't need anti-cheat will have anti-cheat in them, and the anti-cheat existing in the game is only there to prevent you from running the game offline. That is so fucking infuriating, because there are plenty of times that the anti-cheat just completely just destroys the performance of your computer. Okay? And I hate that. Like, because the initiative focuses exclusively on the outcome of a working game and not the methodology for doing so, source code, server binaries, etc.
Someone asked if you could link to the petition so that people could go sign.
That is a very good point. Let me do that. You know what, actually, sign the petition. You guys ever play Postal, where the guy is like, you would like to sign my petition, and he has that voice, the Postal dude? There we go. Yeah, remember, you can only sign it if you're an EU Andy.
Or how this won't work because of end-user license agreements. That's also not a problem. Or how this isn't possible because publishers already have agreements with other companies and don't have the rights to distribute that.
It is pinned. It is pinned, chat. It is pinned.
Code. We're aware of that. Yes, the initiative is still possible. Those are the ones I've seen most.
The terms of the initiative would still be possible regardless of any pre-existing deals with publishers that might conflict with it, because it's not retroactive. If passed, it would not go into effect until likely years from now, giving publishers time to make deals for future games they wish to sell in the EU. For existing games where these terms would not be possible, there are multiple options, but only the EU Commission can make the final decision on what would happen. Some examples are shutting down the game before the new directive goes into effect, exempting existing games from the new requirement, and only affecting new games sold after the directive goes into effect. Yeah, so it's like, that's another thing where there are ways for this to happen, right? One of the annoying parts of this is how ignorant Thor is to like how politics work, right? Or how these things happen and how this compromise occurs, okay? Like that's one of the most infuriating things. Like the way Thor talks about it is that like, oh, it happens instantaneously and everybody gets affected and fined, right? When it wouldn't happen like that. They're not like, the EU isn't looking to just fuck you, okay? Like they're aware of the reality of the situations and they take it into account, right? It's why big publishers go and they make and broker these deals with the EU so that way they can do these things, okay?
Organically. Beyond that, there is a clear patient zero where others come from. Okay, I really don't want to do this next part, but it's become a liability for the
his first name is not Thor. His first name is not Thor, but he chooses to go by Thor.
Campaign for me not to. Our biggest critic by far is YouTuber and streamer Pirate Software, who goes by Thor. If your only exposure to Stop Killing Games has been this video, then you've been misinformed. This video is by someone who does not understand the campaign, has been trying to stop it.
One of PS's arguments is, what if WoW goes down? And WoW already has power. Yeah, what the fuck?
And has been making up what it is about. I am not saying that lightly. I will prove it in a minute. Now you might be thinking, okay, so some YouTuber got something wrong.
Yeah, it's like his name is Jason Thor Hall, right? That's public. That's not like a dox or anything, right? But it's like he just goes by Thor.
The internet. So what? See, that was my thinking too. The problem is how incredibly influential this YouTuber has been. Remember that list of coverage on the campaign? Well, best I can tell, Thor's coverage has been bigger than literally anyone else on those lists, except Asmongold. And the only video Asmongold had on this bigger than Thor's was about Thor's video. So for all practical purposes, Thor here has been the #1 voice on the campaign, and he's been lying about what it is. That's a bit loaded though. In this case, I'm using the second definition of lie.
No, I don't even think it's loaded. I have seen this part of the video, and to be frank, I think Ross is not a guy who likes to play around in the mud, but it's like, this guy's this guy, like, Thor's such a fuck ass. Like, he's such a smug, smarmy piece of shit, narcissistic fucking psycho. Okay? This guy is like a piece of shit who would get annoyed if you, like, cut in front of him in traffic, okay? Like, he would seethe about it in a way that is incomprehensibly delusional, okay?
I have no evidence it's the first. This video came out right as we were building momentum, then except for one boost in Germany, the signatures started drying up like clockwork. This put me in kind of a no-win scenario too, because if I ignored it, then a lot of people are going to get misinformed about the campaign.
This is really great. This is great.
But if I did a response video, which is not something I wanted to do anyway, then it might look like drama farming, which could understandably turn off a lot of people from the campaign, because it's not about that at all. So I quickly made this video trying to clear up all misconceptions and concerns about the initiative.
See, he like, Ross is like, I care about this politically and I wish to make a change. And then Pirate Software is just smearing Ross, okay? And not providing any alternative. Like, unironically, like, and ultimately, right, it comes down to like this matter of philosophy, right? Does Thor care about video games as art? Like, does he? I think if you were to ask him that question, he'd say yeah. But then if you were to say, like, well, what about those games that can never be played again and no one can ever experience? Like this, he doesn't have an alternative answer. I wouldn't care for Thor having an alternative position if he could present something else. Bro, he worked at Blizzard, of course he doesn't. But there are plenty of people at Blizzard who actually give a fuck about WoW. They give a fuck about the history of it, about the knowledge of it, about the ability for people to exist and enjoy WoW long after the game is shuttered. Okay, like the ability to host like a private server has existed for a long time. It's in a gray area, right? But like, these things exist and there's ways for it to exist. And the people in Blizzard, let me tell you this, right? From my experience with people who loved video games, right? Remember, before I went to film school, I was like in game design and blah, blah, blah. Everybody there, this was before Blizzard got exposed for being the Bill Cosby drinking breast milk place, right? Everybody there would want to work for Blizzard or Riot because that is like the peak of what that would be professionally, right? Because you play those games growing up and you love them. I don't think the people at Blizzard hate games.
With timestamps for everyone's questions, hoping that
we know his answer. He's on record for saying not being able to play live service games after they end service is perfectly fine. That's an insane. That's insane. Imagine a book that you can only read if you lived as an adult with excess income from 20 years. And that's what, yeah, exactly, KJ. Like, you're hitting it. By the way, the same problem right now is happening with ebooks, okay? If you buy an ebook on Kindle, you don't have the ability to take it off their service anymore. Before Kindle shuttered that ability to take your files off the Kindle and save them, I pulled my entire library and now I have a private library for myself. Okay. And part of the reason I did that in the beginning was because I was annoyed that they updated the cover of Dune. Okay. I was annoyed because I had a really nice cover of Dune on Kindle. Okay. And these fucking guys updated it with the fucking movie. Okay. And I like the movie, but it's like, brother, like that was part of the experience. Diesel, don't tell people Anna's archive exists. They are evil and people shouldn't know. You know what was crazy? You know that Anthropic and Llama, which is the meta AI, were both trained on pirated books, right? They've been training large language models on books they didn't even fucking purchase. Okay? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Which, by the way, that case for Anthropic, they're gonna have to pay fines for. By the way, that is something that happened. The one with Llama is a bit iffy right now. It kind of goes back and forth. But apparently, it's okay to train an LLM on books as long as you purchase those books. But if you pirate those books, you're gonna be fined for it.
The truth would eventually come out. I can see now that was a mistake. I should have just embraced the drama. To this day, I'm still getting frequent comments and emails about the same falsehoods about the campaign that originated in this video. Well, now I have nothing to lose. If we don't get the signatures, then none of this matters anyway. So if this campaign is failing because of me not talking about this, then I'll at least correct history here on the way down. I'll get this over with and go over what I think are the biggest points of Pirate Software's videos. I'm not going to go over everything because collectively Thor has made hours of video on both me and the movement. I'd be here forever. Believe me, I could address smaller things too, and kind of already have. Alright, let's start. Okay, point number 1. Thor does not understand what Stop Killing Games is. Here it is in his words.
So for those who don't understand, the Stop Killing Games...
Dude, this guy is such a smug piece of shit. This guy is such a faux creative. I'm sorry. Like, Heartbound is never getting done. The fact that this guy is successful is absolutely astounding, right? It's like, he has a brilliant name. Pirate Software is a great name, okay? But he's never finishing his game. That's never getting done, okay? He's too busy being a streamer. It's never getting fucking done. He can't put the axe to the grindstone and actually produce art. I'm sorry. He's such a faux artist. This comes off as like a smug art school thing. I'm sorry. I know. But like, Jesus fucking Christ.
Initiatives is basically...
And I hate this. I hate this. I want to take the fucking pen out of your fucking hand. You're such a Epsler. This guy's an Epsler. You're so fucking smug. I hate this guy. Holy shit. God, I want to say a bad word. Take a breath, Diesel. Say it, Diesel. Say it.
We don't want single-player games
No.
to have DRM that the developers can turn off and thus render the single-player games inactive anymore. This is what they want to change. They need to be specific that they're talking about.
What would get done first? Yandere Simulator or Heartbound?
Yandere Dev Simulator we should play on a stream sometime because it is like playable and you can finish it, okay? I will give you $5 to say it.
I will give you $5 to say
How
it.
cheap do you guys think I am?
Single-player games that do not need a server to support them.
No.
And as much as they want it to be about specifically games, where it is a single-player game that has always online functionality.
He actually claims he codes for hours after stream to hide spoilers. He streams on average 7 to 8 hours a day, often breaching 10. Every update since the Steam tag has been tiny. Uh, I have a link to the petition because it was better than sending it to the Stop Killing Games website because you'd just be clicking through hoops. So that just gets you directly to the petition. But if you look up stopkillinggames.com, you'll get there.
It would impact every live service game that exists. Instead of just targeting single player, always online games.
No, that's not what it is. Stop Killing Games includes single player games, but nothing about it is specific to them. He completely made that up, and I have no idea where he got that impression. This is what I mean. It's harder for gamers to understand this because they come with so many assumptions. It's like that saying about doctors being the worst patients.
He's deliberately he's deliberately obfuscating what it is. Like,
so let's clear this up. It's the first line on the website. Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. But the movement includes all this stuff from earlier, and he was mostly talking about the initiative. Well, the short version is the initiative is about requiring publishers to have end-of-life plans for games they've sold to customers in the future. So when they shut them down, customers can continue running them without their support.
yeah, it's like okay, and by the way, an end of life plan, I could see a publisher kind of like nickel and diming it and being like, we're gonna shut down the game anyway, right? But it's like that being readily available to the consumer, I think is appropriate, right? Just like how Steam updating their shop to say, hey, the last update was this time on early access games is a good thing that consumers should know about. Which, by the way, yes, I know that Thor has been kind of like updating Heartbound now in order to avoid that, okay?
The long version depends on what kind of transaction is being made. As you can see, it's not easy to explain in a soundbite. But if you notice, we don't make a distinction between single-player and multiplayer games. That's because the law doesn't either. So why make this even harder? Both the movement and the law are making distinctions on how games are sold. Also, that part he said about it affecting all live service games, yes and no. It would affect most live service games in the future, but the initiative is not retroactive. So that's one thing Thor doesn't understand, but he also seems to think this is about converting multiplayer games to single player. Once again, he made that up, and I have no idea why he thought that.
Transitioning an entire
Do you have an original
multiplayer
do you have the copy of Thor's original Twitter response to this video? Maybe I will have to check. I think my mods might have gotten it.
side game into a single player video game, which means rebalancing the entire experience around single player.
What do you mean, Thor? That's just wrong. That's so wrong, dude. What the fuck? these are just like the most outrageous lies ever. It's not even like reasonable, the stuff he's saying here.
Building everything in the entire game.
It's not because Thor worked for Blizzard. It's not because Thor worked for Blizzard. Okay, that's not why he has this opinion. Okay, Thor has a vested interest now. Okay, I'll pull up the game. I'll pull up the game that Thor is a part of. Anything we don't have is in Harmful's video. Okay. So Rivals of Aether 2 is this. This is a live service. Okay. Yeah, by the way, here's why you don't want to use Thor and Blizzard in the same sentence together, right? Because he uses that as an example for his professionalism and his ability to get work done. Okay. Has Lud commented on Stop Killing Games? Yeah, he commented on it recently. I do believe he talked about it recently with Thor. I might get to that tonight. I have a feeling I'm going to be doing more than one stream on this because the drama's pretty big and it's also pretty late. But yeah, so this is a live service game. Off-Brand Games is the publisher, and Off-Brand Games, Thor is a part of. Okay. But this is a live service game that lives and dies by its live service model. Okay. And Pirate Software is a dummy. It has next to no involvement in this game. He's still a part of it. He's still a part of it, right? That has been the move now, is to say that he doesn't have any involvement in this. I have a feeling that Thor might have been removed, right? There's a possibility of that because of how many problems Thor is causing. If I was Off-Brand Games, I would distance myself from Thor too.
Do that with Final Fantasy 14. You're just going to make all the raids soloable?
By the way, let me just tell you, the creators of Final Fantasy 14 are making it playable offline. They are doing that. That is happening. I'm not fucking joking. So that doesn't fucking work anymore.
Imagine the day that World of Warcraft shuts down, and suddenly you have to make it a single-player game for every individual that ever bought the game.
You are so stupid. You are so stupid. Guys, imagine they made WoW single player. Are you, really? They have private servers. That's a thing.
They're asking.
You work there, buddy.
No.
Because they would have to.
So that's the developers of Final Fantasy 14 do it like they're prepping for an end of life. That is what that is. That's why they're adding bots to run dungeons and raids and stuff like that, right? That is part of their process to do that. But it's also good quality of life stuff because as the pool of players gets lower, last time I upped my subscription on Final Fantasy, I had bots help me in a dungeon and it was fine. Also, WoW has been doing that. You now get NPC companions in dungeons in WoW. Like,
I already play WoW solo.
yeah, I basically play WoW solo when I do up my subscription.
At live service games as a single-player experience. The idea that suddenly you need to make every single live service game playable single-player offline? No, dude.
Correct. No. This one is particularly baffling to me because I've heard most counter-arguments before, but until Thor, I've never heard this one. That we want the industry to convert all multiplayer games into single-player ones. I keep saying it, you never know where gamers are going to take this.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games.
Oh, he's so close. He's so close to getting it.
It is vague, and because of that, it will impact.
He never has that light bulb moment. Well, he is correct in that statement. It's almost as if that's not what the initiative is asking for. But those were his streams with a smaller audience. What does he say in his big YouTube video with over 1 million views that he had time to research?
If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single-player experience, and then taking away support in the future.
Now he's changed it again and is making up how it's about single-player games are advertised. What is he doing?
I don't even understand why Thor has inserted himself in this. It really doesn't. I'm like, so one of the things that I do when I like cover drama, and I think I'm pretty decent at it, right? I can't read people's fucking minds, right? Some people are like, Diesel, how did you not know this? Shouldn't you be able to literally read a mind? I can't, right? But, you know, like I can understand why someone like Cameron does what he does, right? I can understand that. I can wrap my brain around it. But I don't understand why Thor would do this, because it's so easy to just not participate in discussion. Like, it's so easy to just not. Oh my God, I scrolled his Twitter. He posted proof that he has a minimum wage job. He is literally a millionaire. There is no way he's not. He makes too much money from streams. That is a crock of horse shit.
It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat, which is specifically companies that are doing this under the guise of it being a single-player game, but adding online-only functionality that is not necessary and doesn't add any gameplay elements. That's the problem.
The language for Ross is like, the language for stop killing games is so clear that I don't understand why he's so wrong. Okay? He makes minimum wage at Ludwig's game studio. Yeah, he can afford to make minimum wage at Ludwig's game studio because he spends 8 to 10 hours a day fucking streaming.
That's not it at all.
And there are some people that'll say, well, just make it all single player.
Like
well,
you?
I've explained that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single player, you'd have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. These are two different ideologies.
He makes minimum wage from a friend as a consultant. I legit don't care what he does for Rivals of Aether 2. What about his live service game?
And that's okay to have two different ideologies.
Counterpoint, he's bad with money and wasted it all. Possible. Many such cases with YouTubers. They tend to be very bad with money.
I just won't agree with it.
But those aren't the ideas.
I literally, okay, even for minimum wage, I think Ludwig is being robbed by this guy. Say whatever you want about Ludwig. Thor is riding him into the sunset, okay?
Ideologies. Nothing in the initiative is asking to convert games to single player.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single player games.
Yeah, so why does he keep bringing it up? This is a total red herring.
If we don't like the idea of live service games as a whole, I get it. Don't play live service games then. Don't agree to those terms.
No, he's getting a new thing wrong now. We're not against them existing. We're against them being destroyed with no recourse for the customer. Just use logic. If we didn't like them in the first place, why would we care if they're being destroyed? He says he gets it, but he doesn't.
Let's talk about the actual bad business practices. In the case that a studio is making a live service game,
I can only imagine the bad business practices Thor gets up to. Show us your tax return, Thor. Show us your tax return.
and they sell it to you as a product. They say that you are purchasing the game or you are buying the game, when in reality you're actually purchasing or buying a license to that game. I think that we should be
Do you think the voice changer thing? I don't. People say he uses a voice changer. He doesn't use a voice changer. Okay, there are other streamers I've watched.
Freeman's mind fight Thor.
There are other streamers I've watched for like over a decade that have had their Northern Lion is somebody I watch, by the way, right? Here's an example of that. If you watch Northern Lion from like fucking 5 years ago, okay, not even 5 years ago, maybe like 6, 7 years ago, right? He sounds like a different fucking person, okay? And it can happen, all right? I literally, like, who gives a single flying fuck about that, all right? Like, people are like, oh, Thor's so cringe. He uses a fucking voice chat. Who cares? Who cares? Oh, people get on the internet and tell a lie like that. Is like literally, like, at least the stuff with him being like a furry, or like, it's not even him being a furry, right? It's about him doing the ERP and like the weird Second Life stuff. Like, that's at least a little bit more interesting, right? But it's just like, we're like really stretching the definition and just like muddying the waters by getting caught up in all these things that are just so not important.
fighting about that. The initiative is not trying to call that out specifically. It's trying to say that all games need to stay in a functionable, playable state.
Yes!
Which is not calling out the language that is being used to manipulate the player. Call that out specifically.
Okay, I don't know if he's doing this intentionally. I'll be charitable and assume he's not. But this is some serious obfuscation. He's complaining that the initiative isn't focused on another topic he made up. I mean, what is that logic? Hey, the initiative doesn't address how Capcom changed the look of Dante in the Devil May Cry reboot either. That may as well be what he's saying there. I am not aware of a game on the planet with a license agreement that says you are not buying a license. Our problem is not with licenses failing to inform people. Blizzard says they can take away your purchase for no reason. That sounds pretty clear to me. Our problem is those terms are so hostile to consumers and the medium that they should be taken off the table entirely. This needs regulation. Forget video games. If you look at basic commerce for hundreds of years, when you paid money, you either got to keep what you paid for, or if it was a service, you were told when your access ends. The vast majority of online-only games do neither of those. The games industry is trying to upend basic commerce. I think you have to go back to feudalism before neither of those things are true. Why even have consumer laws if you have no rights?
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run them.
Oh no!
Oh my god.
Oh, he wheeled out that line about publishers having to support the game forever. He was literally watching the video earlier where it says it won't do that in big letters. That wasn't enough. We just can't stop gamers from going there, even when we.
Dude, it's crazy, man. Thor would make he'd be a politician in another life, man. You know, he'd be a politician in another life, right? The ability to talk confidently with a thing behind you that proves you're wrong is an ability that is just only achieved by the greatest of politicians.
We spell it out. I admit, guys, this part hurts. To see the biggest voice on this issue get it wrong again and again and again, then put that same wrong information on blast to a far bigger audience than we can reach. It hurts. He doesn't.
I think this is one thing that should just go to like prove to people, right? Is that just because you have an online audience or you're some guy online, and this applies to me too, by the way, right? Like I don't feel like I have ulterior motives with what I do, but just because you're online or just because you have an audience does not mean that you are an expert or that you know better. And I personally will I would be a little wary of people who present themselves as experts of a thing and deliberately re-establish themselves like constantly. You know how like Grums is like, I worked for Blizzard. I helped Vanilla WoW get out the door, right? Thor is like, I work for Blizzard. I understand coding. I work for Blizzard. It's just like
Corpo 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 corpo.
Fauci does not like him. He is a corpo. He is super corpo. He would be licking the boot of Saburo Arasaka as he finishes the Secure Your Soul program, okay? He would welcome subscription services for the engram of your dead grandmother with open arms. Right? But it's just like, I feel like if you are a professional and you are a creative and you get things done, you don't constantly reaffirm to strangers on the internet that you're a professional that gets things done, right? People who get things done and people who make things don't constantly need to tell their people who watch them or pay attention to them that they're professional and get things done. They just get things done.
Get it. He doesn't understand what we're asking for. Now, to be fair, it sounded like he was getting a little closer in this video. Yeah, despite being called 2, it's at least the 4th video he did on this.
You want that to stay in a functional playable state. That means the devs have to release either server binaries or somehow carve off the game to be a single-player experience now.
That's better, but he's still talking about converting the single player right to the end. He never completely got it. So Pirates...
There's a saying, if you're good at your job, you don't have to announce it. You just do it.
Software did not understand the initiative. Maybe still doesn't. That means the majority of his critique is about things it would not do, like kill all MMOs.
If that passes, enjoy never playing an MMO again for the rest of your life.
That is so fucking insane of a sentence. That is an insane sentence.
And taking away from every other
this guy can't stream and program at the same time, by the way. I don't know if you guys have ever programmed, right? I've dabbled. But you spend any time programming, you're sitting there in silence typing a thing out and you're like, fuck, doesn't work. Type it again. Fuck, doesn't work. Type it again. What the fuck is wrong with it? Okay, let me just review this. Like, it's not an exciting experience.
that plays MMOs.
It really wouldn't. And I've explained why in that video. But the short version is companies would have to stop liking money for that to happen. Lots of money. But his number one criticism is that he thinks the initiative is vague.
Incredibly vague. Too vague. Very vague. Damn vague. It's vague. It's vague. That is vague. Too vague. Vaguely written. Vague. Incredibly vague. Vaguely worded. Vague. 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 This is vague.
This goes on.
Yeah, so fucking the healthy gamer guy, Dr. K, tried to like Dr. K tried to try to have Thor like kind of address his condescending nature, and then Thor started like arguing with Dr. K. Yes.
Well, from Thor's perspective, his logic is pretty sound for this part. But the thing about logic is it's only as good as your assumed truths. And he's said multiple times now that he thinks the initiative is only about single-player games.
That's not how you program. You hear clicking over and over as you browse Stack Overflow to Reddit and GitHub.
So since he's expecting the thing he made up, but that's not what the initiative is asking for, he thinks it's vague. Because for him, it is.
Nowhere in there does it say that it's directly targeting always online single-player games. It is vague.
Yeah, in fact, if we look at that long definition again, let's add a subsection just for Thor. Single-player games with an online DRM check. Those would already fall under this broader category. So Thor is expecting this. Again, I don't know why, but instead he's seeing an initiative that covers all of this. That's why he calls it vague 50 times. The thought that we want what we're asking for and not the thing he made up seems to have never entered.
I don't even know, like, part of it is like I want to say that Thor is like deliberately malicious because he's like some corpo sleaze bag masquerading as Master Hacker Man, right? But then on the other token of it, like Ross and the initiative are so clear that part of me wants to go, maybe he's just like the biggest smug idiot on the planet and doesn't know how to take an L. So he's repeatedly doubling down with his inability to like pay attention to it. Like maybe he is like a massive moron. Maybe it's just like an idiocy. Like he can't pass the threshold.
His head. The initiative is trying to stop the destruction of games. That's the whole point. It covers the types of games most in
Yeah, it does feel like the corpo trust fund baby angle plays a big role in it. I do agree.
need of saving. If we only covered this tiny subsection, that would save maybe 1% or less of games that get destroyed. This would do almost nothing. I'm not saying there isn't one, but I literally can't think of a game that meets this criteria. Every game I know of with single-player content that's been destroyed has been designed to run server-side, not locally. Older ones like that tend to have the DRM cracked, which is not an ideal solution, but that does stop game destruction. And newer ones with
Dude, I don't know if any of you remembered Games for Window Live, but like, Jesus Christ, did that shit suck. Holy shit. Why did LA Noire need Games for Windows Live? It's terrible, dude.
Or something tend to have it removed by end of life. So I say less than 1%, but this might save 0% of games. I'm not sure. The initiative is actually not that vague. Though to be fair, some people did get hung up on this part. A reasonable
People don't read. That's it. I'm sorry. That's like really it.
playable or functional state. True, that is not 100% specific. There are reasons for that. You know how in law, police can stop a...
No one would ever call him a Nepo baby if he didn't constantly wave around his industry experience. Yeah, or if his skill reflected his experience. Also, yes. It's like, listen, man, if he was actually a successful developer, I don't even think he would be a streamer, personally. It's just he spends so much time streaming and not producing.
Suspect with reasonable suspicion, or a jury finds someone guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. That's because the number of situations you face are so varied that the law has to inject some common sense somewhere. It's the same with games. A multi-million-dollar MMO is a different animal from a budget arena shooter. It won't work making highly specific laws. That's one half of it. The other half of it is this sentence is an...
Fauci is currently derailing, actually. This dude, Fauci is not a Pirate Software fan.
Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you.
Holy shit.
Olive branch to publishers. I've heard complaints this isn't specific enough. Okay, but you know what the alternative to this would be? Here, I'll show you. The game must be fully functional and contain 100% of all features as advertised. So as a publisher,
No one reads anything anymore. They just go, Grok, is this true? They just go, ChatGPT, please read this for me.
which requirement would you rather meet? More importantly, this sentence shows the EU Commission that we're acting in good faith and trying to find a balance. I think some of the people asking for this to be more specific may not realize what they're asking for. I know some won't believe this, but a hell of a lot of thought went into the wording of the initiative. I think it's almost perfect. See, the initiative isn't even a proposed bill, it's a negotiation. Our side.
Hey guys, you notice how like the last few streams I've talked about, I'm sorry, I don't want to be political, Andy. This is a drama stream. I'm a moron and I went to art school, blah, 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 right? But you know how I say that fucking politics is like the art of the deal? Remember when I did that and I was like, it's a negotiation, it's like a deal, right? Remember when I said that? That's this. That's why this is like this. Ross is saying the thing I said.
It says we want games to be functional when publishers end support. So they need end-of-life plans. The industry's position is going to be against whatever we
Exactly, which is why politics acts as a mediator.
right, and claim they need no regulation whatsoever. Then the EU Commission gets to decide who is more in the right here. The Citizens Initiative is the opening offer in these negotiations. Trust me, the industry worth hundreds of billions.
Exactly. So like the Citizens Initiative has one value, the industry has another, and then they meet in the middle and politics says, okay, there's clearly an issue here. We need to come to a deal. We need to make a deal here. People want you to stop killing games.
Billions of dollars will make its position known to the EU. We don't have to make their case for them. So for this negotiation, simple is good. That's why we're straight and to the point for what we want. Then the industry will argue against that. Then the EU Commission might look for compromises. You don't start a negotiation with a bunch of compromises because then it will get so watered down you won't save anything. Oh, and that long definition list?
Yes.
Are actually logical.
I don't, Thor, have you ever purchased a home or something? Did you ever realize that you do this thing called negotiating, or did you just pay market value because you're stupid?
Extensions of the simpler language used in the initiative. It's actually kind of slick. Plus, there's a character limit on these things. The EU Commission doesn't want you trying to cover 50 edge cases at this phase. All right, so Pirate Software did not understand the initiative. But point two, he also did not make it easy for the truth to get out. I had never heard of him prior to all this, but during the campaign, I had
That's gotta hurt his ego, I'm not gonna lie.
dozens of people contacting me, telling me how
Thor doesn't know the art of lowballing.
wise and reasonable he is, how he's really pro-consumer and represents developers, and I should really talk to him. Great, let's do it. So this was my first encounter of him.
Oh shit, now this is actually really dumb. It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit.
Wow. Nothing shuts when I try to engage with people, especially peer creators, right? Nothing shuts down a conversation more than Thor acting the way Thor is acting right now. It's literally like pathetic bullshit. Like if somebody acts like that in the creator space to me and they're like Thor, I'm just not even gonna bother because there's no point. Like you don't care. Like you actually just don't care about this.
Shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude.
This guy needs to be smacked. This guy needs to be smacked. He needs to be hit so bad. I think sometimes bad things should happen to people. I think it would teach him a lesson. I think it would be some humble pie if he got splayed out in the Waffle House parking lot.
No, eat my entire ass. The level of stupid that I just had to receive.
You should get this shit kicked out of you by. I saw this. Okay, there was a. Hold on. Where was this? Where was this? Hold on. I think it was in the op block server. and I was looking at the memes and then taking them and then saving them myself. Where was this? Cloudy, I know you sent it today. Okay, where it was like the guy got hit, or the guy was talking about his boss, getting the shit kicked out of him or something. I know this is a thing. This is a real thing. I remember seeing it with my eyeballs. Great, now I'm gonna look crazy like I didn't see that meme. Where is this meme? This is a real meme I saw.
Fernando H celebrates 20 months of membership.
Sent.
Clearly not enough time shoved in the locker.
Hold on. That's true. Not enough time spent in a locker. Okay.
Then my manager is like, yo, I'm gonna go outside and fight him. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. That's a homeless dude. You lose, you walk to a homeless dude. You win, you beat up a homeless dude. It's a lose-lose for you. And I was like, if you get washed, you know cameras are gonna see this, right? He goes outside and fights the homeless dude. And to even make more perspective, this is a manager that eats Arby's on a regular, so he's not a good person.
Dude, that's like a great way to. That's a great judge of character. He eats Arby's on the regular. He's not a good person.
He goes and fights the homeless dude outside, which I don't know why he tried to do it. Maybe because there was girls at the job that he didn't get no place, so he's trying to, like, yo, I can whoop a homeless nigga real quick. He got whooped by that homeless nigga real fast. He swung on the homeless dude. Homeless dude pieced him up, put him on the floor, stomped him out. I'm not going out there to help my manager from a job like this. I'm not getting paid enough for that. Manager gets smoked, comes back inside, like, get to work. I'm like, nigga, you go get some hands first.
Oh my god.
You just got beat up.
Thor
Don't
needs
tell
to
us what
have
do
this
for the rest of the
experience.
day. Actually, you're done for today. You're done. You're done.
Thor needs this experience now.
Was like sitting on Twitter for 12 hours. This shit sucks. That's a really stupid ass move. That's an incredibly stupid ass move. I think this is ass. This is complete garbage. All of this can eat shit then. I drop the mask entirely.
Of course I smell
I have
like
no
roast
qualms
beef.
about that.
Masher.
They can eat my entire
This
ass.
whole place
The whole
smells
thing.
like roast
That sounds
beef.
stupid as shit.
That's an incredibly insane no-no, but I will take your $5 anyway.
Oh, yeah. I can see why people like him. It's like listening to Mr. Rogers. As you can imagine,
Like listening to Mr. Rogers. Yeah, man. You catch more flies with honey than you do with shit.
I've been less than thrilled that Thor here has become the dominant voice of the campaign, especially when he doesn't understand it. Though I did find the used car salesman part amusing, since if people could read my mind, they would understand how much I dread anything resembling sales or marketing, or just trying to push things on people who aren't interested in them. I'm not exaggerating when I said I've hated having to run this campaign.
This is the most uneducated take I have ever seen in games.
Now, as for that one, I do have a bachelor's in criminal justice, which might explain why I'm coming at this from very different angles than he is.
I did not know that, but that makes a lot of sense. His ability to like develop an argument, it does track.
You know, focusing on people having rights and checking what consumer law actually says rather than what's most convenient for publishers. Though I think I know where that comment is coming from because I've gotten it before. Here's what I think is happening. Online-only games have a client and a server, but a lot also have middleware that developers don't have permission to distribute to customers, or depend on microservices they have no control over, and the server software isn't even designed to run on a customer system. You can't just cut out the middleware and remove the microservices because they're integrated too deeply. That would still leave the game bricked and could take months to fix and be a lot of work. So I think some devs think we're saying all they need to do is just release the server binaries at end of life and yay, everything is solved. And that's why they think we're ignorant. Well, for some games that could work, but not ones like these. Plus, that's not what we're saying. First off, we're not even mandating the methodology because again, doing that could run afoul of copyright law. Second, this whole diagram is looking at a game that exists right now and was never designed to have an end-of-life plan. Those might not be salvageable. So what we're saying is let's take a game in the future. No code has been written yet. It's still just a design document.
Exactly. That's one of the most infuriating parts about Thor's argument is that the way Thor projects this like whole initiative is that the second it exists, it happens to everybody now, instantly. When it just wouldn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Okay, there's tons of things that get grandfathered into new legislation because they're old and already exist. Right? Like, it's just like anybody who's existed in the world and paid attention to politics at all knows that. It's just that, okay, some things are old, so they get grandfathered in, so the legislation doesn't apply to them. You've experienced that. If you live on the East Coast and you've experienced multi-use zoning, that's an example of that.
Okay, so we have the client portion as usual. Then we have the server logic. Now we'll bring in our usual middleware and microservice vendors. Nope, stop. Now the EU says we can't just brick customer purchases like we've been doing if we want to sell our games there. So that means we can't keep making all these same deals the way we have been. Now we need to renegotiate with the vendors to allow for an end-of-life build with their software. Or redesign things to make the microservices easier to sever at end of life. And vendors probably will renegotiate. Otherwise, they'll start losing sales to everyone who wants to sell games in the EU. But say a vendor refuses anyway. Then we need to go with vendor B, who will offer EU-compliant solutions because they will be happy to take money away from their competitor, vendor A. Or maybe we need to abandon one of the microservices altogether and come up with an in-house alternative that is compatible with an end-of-life plan. And if the server can't run
okay, literally, that's like another thing. The second puberty thing is him poorly explaining that his voice got deeper. That is literally it. That's literally it, right? Again, I've explained that I've watched other people who've made content so long that happened, right? But when he describes it, he ends up sounding like a smug, annoying fuck ass, so nobody wants to believe him.
consumer hardware. Well, maybe now we code it in a way that's more versatile and can be compiled to run a stripped-down version with less features for the customer machine at end of life. Or hey, if that's not doable, then we scrap that, but still give customers some form of server software at end of life because now we've planned for this.
You know what? Luigi had it right, Diesel. Be right back, /J.
And inform them it requires specialized hardware, and they're on their own for getting it working. And these are all just suggestions. The publisher would get to decide how they want to comply. Thor is not alone in developers trashing what I just said. I don't know why, but some of the nastiest insults I've received on the entire campaign have been when I try to explain this is what we're asking for. This part in particular triggers some people to no end.
That video made me actually mad. Like real mad. Not like fake memes mad, like actually.
Diesel, are you excited to see Cuomo go? Yeah, I heard he was gonna run on an independent ticket. I thought that was pretty funny. I don't think he's winning. People are treating it like Mamdani already won the election for the mayor. He hasn't, so it's like, brother. I do think the Republican ticket is really interesting if you're familiar with New York City history at all, though. Very interesting character. What is his name? Something Sliwa or whatever. I don't know if any of you knew about New York City in the 70s and the 80s, but it was pretty fucking bad. And it's a stream for another time, but there was it was so bad and it was so hard to like maintain order in the city that there were citizens watch initiatives. And there was this one initiative that got really popular called the Guardian Angels, and they wore red berets, and they would patrol like the city to make sure people are safe. And the guy running on the Republican ticket is the guy who made that initiative back in the 70s. But yeah, that's basically what they are. So that's why he wears the beret. And by the way, you can still see Guardian Angels. They still exist in the city. They work as like a volunteers initiative for like broke people or just like keeping people safe in different parts of the city. It's but yeah, he's a very weird character. I'm very surprised he ran on the Republican ticket, to be honest.
Actually mad.
But it's like a weird like little piece of like New York City history that I'm just like, I don't think people like don't like know who this person is. And they don't know that he's like this it's like crazy guy who's been in the city for like years.
Like, I'm actually mad.
Upsetting people is not our goal, by the way. We actually want this transition to be as easy as
You know who Thor reminds me of? The mayor from the live-action How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He just has the same arrogance.
That's crazy. What's I think of that guy from the what's the movie? Puss in Boots. That like fat guy. There we go. There's your fruit chat.
possible for publishers and developers. However, we are stubbornly against proposals that won't stop commercial games being destroyed, because that's the whole point. Anyway, you heard Thor's comments for me. In light of that, I think I've been pretty diplomatic. I am just trying to get this initiative passed. If that means I have to get insulted all along the way, okay. So with that in mind, I reached out to him, not expecting to change his mind, but to at least clarify things since he got so much wrong. If you're gonna hate us, at least hate us for what we're actually doing, not for things that are made up about us.
I got a message from Ross. There were many
Okay, first of all, that's a comment, not a message, all right? Let's
other misunderstandings in your video. It's clear that you hate the initiative, and I doubt I would change that. That is correct. I would encourage you to at least hate it for what it accurately is. I do.
He says that so confidently. Oh yeah, you knocked it out of the park. You understood everything.
In other words, the customer is told explicitly that their access ends at the time of payment. Most live service games do not do this, which could run afoul of EU law. Most is patently incorrect.
Patent?
Oh my god. Falgi is not a fan of Thor. Yeah, it's crazy with so much confidence that Thor talks. Even in Thor, okay, let's be clear here, right?
$20 to do Roblox car crashes.
Well, you know that is $20. You know what they say, $20 is $20. It's like, even with Thor's experience as a game developer, he still wouldn't understand the legal aspects of game development. Because the legal aspects of game development exist outside of the, like, creative aspect of video game making. The guys who make the EULAs for video games are not the guys who ever play the video games or make the video games. So Thor talking like he understands that doesn't make any sense because he just doesn't come from that world. He's never come from that world. He talks like he has experience in games. And if we were to believe what he says about him having experience in games, that doesn't even make any sense. Because he's just not that guy in that process of game development. It's like a different job than anything he experienced. I'll change it to Roblox car crashes. Hold on. Dude, this guy uploads nothing but Roblox car crashes. It's kind of crazy.
Incorrect. Okay, for those who don't know much about live service games, that's like saying the Earth isn't round. He says verifiably false things so confidently. If his viewers don't know any better, how can I blame anyone for believing what he says about the initiative when he talks like that? It's incredible. And he does not wish to discuss this with me or anyone else in the initiative. Why not?
Would you consider reaching?
It's like, how can you spend so much time dogging on it, but not wanting to have a discussion about it with somebody associated with it? You don't even need to have it on stream. I don't.
Out and talking to Ross about it? No. And the reason why is because I found his entire statement over the YouTube incredibly disingenuous.
What do you mean?
Yes, this issue which has bothered me since I was a teenager and I've spent 10 years on trying to push back against is me being disingenuous. Where is this coming from? Well, it comes from a slide I had in my promotional video, the half-joke slide. He hated this.
Yeah.
And I think he may have a rather...
It's true. Politicians do like easy. I don't know, like, who the fuck has a problem with this joke?
privileged view of politics.
You want to put together legislation because it's the right thing to do.
We did.
Not because you can convince legal representatives to do it no matter what.
It's both. These are not mutually exclusive things.
The idea that we're going to go through this because it's an easy win, but not the right win? No, dude.
Dude, what are you fucking talking about, dude? Have you ever met a politician? I don't... his, like, ability to extrapolate things is so fucking confounding. It is absolutely outrageous. The mental hoops that he's going through to compartmentalize this video, bro, is insane.
Oh, God. So he misunderstood the initiative and misunderstood our intentions. And in his words, this is why he refuses to have a dialogue with the movement. So now...
Isn't convincing politicians this an easy win is good? Yeah, because it would align to politicians' values, which is winning and staying in office, okay? With what people want. Diesel, I'll say it, this is just slander. I think it is, right? I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's slander. Look, he's deliberately misinterpreting everything Ross says beyond any reasonable mention. I have seen that Stop Killing Games video from Pirate Software. I have watched it, okay? I have watched Ross's videos on it. The amount of lack of understanding that Pirate Software seems to have is just, I can't wrap my brain around it, because you need to be a non... Okay, look, I've seen it. I've seen it from other streamers. But, like, the whole not paying attention to a video thing while reacting to it, how does that happen? How does that happen? I'm really locked in for this video. I'm paying attention to everything that's happening and all of the things, so that way I could react and say things in a cogent and timely manner, so that way I could get my fucking opinion across to you, okay? But it's just like, I don't know how people are react streamers and then just don't pay attention to anything in the video. How does that happen? Are you just distracted by your chat? Like, I get it. Chat can be distracting, because tons of people in my chat have said stupid things tonight that I could have just gotten, like, completely hung up on, but I just, like, put it in the back of my mind and then focused on what I wanted to talk about. And it's just like, what, are you just incapable of doing that? Like,
I have to address it. Let's keep it basic. He calls me disingenuous, implying I don't believe what I'm pushing for, that this is some sort of con. That's uncharitable to the point of being silly. Besides video evidence going back 10
yeah, chat, stop saying stupid things, you guys.
years, this is not a hard concept to grasp. I hate seeing creative works needlessly destroyed when people are trying to save them, and video games are where I see that happen the most. Of course I believe in what I'm advocating for. Maybe start from there. I'm a little surprised that didn't sink in.
The idea of getting it to pass with an easy win instead of pass because it's good is a...
Okay, Thor, does this phrase, things can be two things. This can be an easy win, and it can be a good thing. Something being easy does not make it diametrically opposed from being good, okay? Sometimes it's easy to be good. Those things exist. That's not a hard concept to grasp. I understand. Sometimes the good things in life require effort, and I'm aware of that. But if this is not that, then it is good.
Problem to me. Absolute problem.
I don't understand. Like, what do you think? Like, how do you walk through life with that mentality? Right? Because the way he presents it makes it sound like all good things must be Herculean tasks. But if all good things require so much effort, why does anybody ever try to do the right thing? Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? If you take it out of the equation of stop killing games and you're just addressing it as like a philosophical point, it just doesn't make any fucking sense.
That's not how politics works. Do you think things pass because they're good ideas? Tell that to people who still have lead in their water. A lot of gamers are jaded with good cause. The industry has been shaking them down every which way. The perception that it's hopeless to protect our rights against billion-dollar conglomerates.
Exactly. Like, we as a people have the ability to enact change, even change against billion-dollar corporations. But if we believe we don't, then we never will.
Often correct. If I told people this would pass just because it's a good idea, I wouldn't believe it.
I implore the game developing student to take an ethics class, to take a business class, to take a business law class. Do those things while you have access to education. Okay? So that way you don't become stupid like Thor, who just has these weird dysfunctional beliefs on reality.
Me. This slide is a half joke, but it's also some totally cynical reasons that are often true to let people know we.
Thor is going to make me call my local representative and try to convince them right to repair. This is good for both urban and rural folks. It is! You should do that! You should go, hey, I'd like to call, you should call your local representative and tell them right to repair is good. Okay? And you should tell them why they should support it. Okay? And both your Republican neighbor and your Democratic neighbor will be like, I thank you, because who the fuck wants to have to pay a dealer to fix their car? Okay? Like, I should be able to fix it myself. I shouldn't need outside software that only pre-approved mechanics can get access to.
We have a chance and this isn't utterly hopeless. Do you think I or most people in the movement give a damn why politicians might pass something good? What we care about is that they pass something good. We don't need them to be true believers. We need
Exactly. We don't need politicians to be true believers. We need them to pass the laws.
To pass good law. This is as soft as it possibly gets in politics. I think most politicians would find this slide funny. It sounds like he's offended I have a low opinion of the political process. Well, I'm the one in the trenches here. I'm not sure if he's upset at me or just upset at reality.
I know. That's where I'm so fucking confounded about it, okay?
Yeah, I am too. Anyway, he went on to delete my reply to him. Thankfully, someone backed it up, and I figured, okay, he hates this. It was thrust upon him by his viewers. I'll just leave him be.
Exactly. And part of it was like it was thrust upon his viewers. There are things that are brought up by my chat where they want me to talk about a thing, but I just have to go, I don't care, and then just move on. Like I can't. Like, if you're a streamer, you should have developed the mental ability to not get one guyed by every fucking guy ever. I don't.
Well, that was a mistake on my part, because then he went on to make more videos about me and the movement, now reaching over 1 million views, still broadcasting the wrong information on us. I guess I'm being petty here, but this is alien thinking to me. Why would you call someone out, then run away from a conversation with them when they say there's a misunderstanding, but then go on to make more videos calling them out? Sir, that is not gentlemanly behavior. All right, I know this is going on too long, so I'll get to the final point. Thor misunderstood the initiative, misunderstood our intentions, and misinformed a lot of people about both. But the irony is, I think he would have hated it even more if he did understand it. Because first, he doesn't see any of this as a problem.
Gaming isn't in need of saving. No, it's not a form of planned obsolescence. It's called the game no longer being profitable and we turned it off. No games.
I can't. I just, that is, you're a corpo. You're a corpo. Okay? You're just a corpo. Like, that's it. You're a boot-licking, Arasaka suit wearing fucking corpo. Okay? That's, yeah, that is planned obsolescence. That's planned obsolescence. You're a fucking corpo, dude. You're a fucking corpo. That's it. That's it, man. You're a fucking corporate fucking shill, dude. Oh my god. We need to normalize that as like a pejorative, bro. Okay, more people need to call people corpo, because this is the most corpo bullshit ever. All right, this is some corporate fucking scumbag cog and machine bullshit.
Are being destroyed here. These are live service games.
Yeah. And it's art, bitch. It's art, you fucking sleazy shitbag.
You heard him. No games are being destroyed. Does he just say anything? Is that why he's popular? More to the point, and what I wish he included in his main video, is he supports games being destroyed.
A very strange demand from people in the gaming industry where live service games should live forever, whether in the hands of the developer or otherwise. And
do you value the work you make at all, Thor? Do you value any of it? Because I don't think you do. Okay? Like Heartbound, this project that's never being finished is meaningless. The point of, like, it is meaningless. Like, that's it. Like, that is what you're telling me. Like, I don't, like, that's just what it shows me. Like, you don't actually care about what you're producing. If you don't view this as some artistic endeavor at all, and you just see it as like, I'm making a product, there's no helping you. You're just you're a corpo. That's it. Go fucking enjoy your top 10 hits pop music, okay? And your fucking slop shit, all right? Because you value no artistic creativity that humanity has to offer, all right? I'm surprised you're not pro AI with this fucking corporate shilling behavior.
I can't get behind that shit. I think live service games getting sunsetted is fine. I've always thought that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
You're a fucking piece of shit.
No problems with...
Like, people can get, like, uppity about his, like, lying or his, like, personal character as a person, but who gives a shit about any of that? Who gives a shit about that at all? This is, like, a billion times more important.
The end of a video game.
See, I wish he started his big YouTube video with that message instead of deleting it. Instead, he presented himself as pro-preservation and not wanting the medium to die out.
It's incredibly important to me that we keep making games and that the next generation has the tools to do so that our medium doesn't die out. And
what do you mean, man? If you can't fucking explore the history of video games, that's how it dies. You can't be both, okay? You can't be like, oh, they need the tools to develop their own games for the future, but then also be so anti-game preservation, okay? Because you need to be able to explore history. Here's something that actually happened when I was in game design school, right? So one of the classes they made me take in game design school was the history of video games. We explored video games from the dawn of, like, computers up until current day, okay? And we would write papers on those games from the past. And, you know, the thing is that we're able to play a lot of those games because they were fucking preserved, okay? But if WoW disappears one day and we can't play WoW anymore, do you realize how influential and important WoW is to the history and culture of gaming?
it never will. And that's the whole intention of all of this.
So he doesn't want games to die out, except he's fine with that. I think there's some cognitive dissonance going on there. And he's against killing single-player games that only have a DRM check, okay? but then says people who buy single-player games with
Thor doesn't have a. I don't even think Thor has a position, to be honest. Thor's position is completely ridiculous, contradictory, and untenable. So Thor's position must be like. It must be whatever makes him the most money at the end of the day. That's it. I don't know of another position he could have. Like
more than a DRM check are stupid, and he doesn't play those.
I don't buy games that are always online single player games. I refuse to play those because it's stupid.
That's some tough talk coming from a fan of Diablo 4.
It's actually really freaking good, dude. The game's fantastic. Itemization is great. Systems design is great. Storyline has been fantastic.
So if the storyline and all of these things are amazing about Diablo 4, what happens if you can never play Diablo 4 again? We just, won't have those lessons? In order to make... Okay, listen. I know that you can't just make a good movie by watching movies, right? But you need to like watch some movies in order to develop taste to make a good movie, right? You're going to need to, right? You need to look at and appreciate the greats because it'll help you learn to paint, right? These things help influence us. The art of those who comes before us help influence the art of the future. If we're not able to access the art of the present in the future because of arbitrary rules and regulations set up by corporations, we will never be able to take those things and learn to make better things for the future. How can somebody build on Diablo 4 if Diablo 4 doesn't fucking exist? Falgi sent me a wall of text. Falgi is fucking flipping out, bro. He is so mad. Here, let me pull this up. Let me go to the bathroom. I need to take a piss. I'll be right back. I'll be right back, chat. I found a piss track. I'm back. And Beto has a good chat. Take, for example, music. A lot of artists take samples or inspiration from older songs. Games, movies, and other mediums are exactly the same. It's history, and we can use it to create something new. Yes. Now we play the wash your hands track so you can wash your hands. Let me pull up Fauci's message to read off. Leaking DMs. In economics and industrial design, planned obsolescence, also called built-in obsolescence or premature obsolescence, is the concept of policies planning or designing a product with an artificially limited useful life or purposefully frail design so that it becomes obsolete after a certain predetermined period of time, which it discrementally Oh my god, dude. Decrementally functions or suddenly ceases to function or might be perceived as unfashionable. The rationale behind this strategy is to generate long-term sales volume by reducing the time between repeat purchases, referred to as shortening the replacement cycle. It is deliberately shortening the lifespan of a product to force people to purchase functional replacements.
A really good example of films inspiring better films is Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls. Fucking love letter to be movie horror genre.
There's so many examples we could give, chat. There's so many examples. Planned obsolescence turns to work best when the producer has at least an oligopoly. Before introducing a planned obsolescence, the producer has to know that the customer is at least somewhat likely to buy a replacement from them in the form of brand loyalty. Guys, here's one of those things. You know when you buy a phone and then all of a sudden your phone starts to work less and less effectively over time? That's like one of those annoying examples, okay? I'm not planning to buy a phone for like another decade, okay? But I know that that option is not going to be there for me, okay? And I'm probably going to have to buy a phone sooner than that, okay? Pirate Software wants to be an oligarch so bad. But it's just like, motherfucker.
Yes, the characters are good. The voice acting is great.
So is he saying he
So all those performances will just be lost forever.
wouldn't have played Diablo 4's single-player campaign if it didn't have forced multiplayer also, even though he's praising it and appears to be playing solo? Or is he saying that people that just wanted to play Diablo 4 single-player are stupid? I admit I got lost on his stance there, but it's more clear.
So when I buy another bag of lemonade from Mana Potion Coffee, is that planned obsolescence since I keep having to replace my lemonade? I mean, you are drinking the lemonade. Let it be known, these goods will go bad. Like by process of existing in our plane of existence, they will go bad by property of oxygen. These are valid questions, Diesel.
Clear to me is we're not on the same side. Here's a list of some popular games that are all at risk of being destroyed at some time in the future. The Stop Killing Games movement sees any of these being destroyed.
By the way, Destiny 2 The Red War is lost media now, by the way, because of this stupid bullshit.
As a problem, and they're exactly the kinds of games that would start being protected if the initiative passed. Now, a lot of these do have single-player campaigns, but I believe they all require more than a simple DRM check.
It would be planned obsolescence if the lemonade made you pee faster, thus making you thirsty quicker, leading you to buy more lemonade.
He says over and over that his problem with the initiative is the wording, and it's vague.
So you're selling us a product that won't last indefinitely after purchase? Why would you just keep it? Dude, you know what happens? I had one of our lemonades. I have a pretty humid room, and I had one of my lemonades for like a really long time, and I went to go pour it into a glass, and it was like a huge block fell out because the lemonade had absorbed the moisture of my room. I have like those anti-moisture things in my room because there's so much moisture that generates in here.
There is no wording he would like that also saves games like these, because he's on the opposite side of this. If he's totally fine with
I'm starting to Stop Killing Lemonade initiative.
games like these being disabled forever, well, guess what? That's the position of the industry causing
Oh my god.
this entire problem in the first place. And that's the final point. Thor says he disagrees with how we're going about trying to end game destruction, but he also disagrees with the goal itself. No, wait, I want to be fair.
I don't even know his position. It doesn't make any sense. Like, it's so... Like, he contradicts his own position by aspect of just existing. Oh, where should you buy this lemonade or potential coffee products? Oh, you could do it over at manapotioncoffee.com.
Only against 99% of it, minus that tiny provision he made up. So once you understand that, then of course it makes sense that he's against the Stop Killing Games movement. because we're trying to stop killing games. Now, if you're in Thor's camp and think killing all these games is fine and are as things should be, okay. Then it's just a values clash. And yeah,
Yeah, it's
you'll
just a
hate the
values
initiative
clash.
too. I'm not trying to tell you otherwise. But if you think you might have been misled about what the initiative is, hey, maybe look at it again. Tell others about it. Help undo some of the damage. There is still time. It closes July 31st. Thor lying about what the campaign is about, remember, second definition, has caused more
Stop
damage
Big Coffee. I can assure you, I am definitely not Big Coffee.
to it than anything else I'm aware of. Now, I've heard some people say, no, it caused a Streisand effect and led to more coverage. Well, if you look at the signature rate, it suggests the opposite. I've also been told a big streamer, like in that group I mentioned earlier, you know, the kind that are so big they could end this, avoided talking about Stop Killing Games because of Thor's take on it. Remember, at the time he did this, Pirate Software was a well-respected developer looked up to by the internet community for having good takes on gaming. And I was, and still am, the weirdo with no credentials other than not wanting games destroyed. So with Thor being seen as the smartest guy in the room and firmly...
Yeah, he's literally, like, Thor's literally doing the thing where if he talks loudly, he'll make a difference, right? Does he mean Ludwig? He probably means Ludwig.
against the initiative, I think that led some internet figures to not want to touch this, lest they be seen like a fool in the eyes of Thor. Now, as I understand it, that risk may have lowered since then, but it doesn't really matter if nobody else talks about it, because he was there to kill the momentum when we needed it the most, and we never got it back. Okay, that's it on him. I did not enjoy having to do that segment, but I've had to do a lot of things on this campaign I don't like. Believe it or not, my goal was not to tarnish Thor's reputation. That's incidental. I don't care. He can be hailed as a national hero. Whatever. The goal
his ability to be like, I don't care is just a beautiful. So Moist Critical has made a video on it. Moist Critical has entered the discussion. He has entered the fray.
was to expose the damage done to the campaign to try and fix it. I do think he's someone who would have defended the divine right of kings hundreds of years ago, but I don't wish him ill will. On the contrary, I hope he finds some peace of mind. Now you might be thinking...
Yeah, I do feel like Pirate Software would support, like, the divine right of kings. Charlie has made at least 3 videos, I think 4, actually.
Is this campaign really so fragile that one big streamer can sink it just by misrepresenting it? Oh, yeah, it totally is. It's been an uphill battle almost every step of the way.
Whose side is Charlie on? Ross? Thor's? He's on Ross's side. He's on Ross's side.
It sinks or swims to the whims of what big streamers do. It kind of reminds me of the Greek gods. That part about easy wins, that's for the politicians, not us. Ours are hard as nails. There are reasons it took me 9 years before I was ever able to actually do anything on this. It's a miracle it's gotten as far as it has. Now, I've seen people ask, if the initiative fails, then what's next? I've tried to explain this before. There is no next. What's next was 1.5 years ago with all those other things we've tried. We're at the final phase now. The European Citizens Initiative is our last possible chance to change anything. See, there are things governments and consumer groups are doing, and then there are things that us, the general public, are doing. After July, I see nothing left for us. So does that mean Stop Killing Games has failed? Well, no, nobody knows yet. We won't know the answer to that for a long time, maybe years. Government moves slowly. The initiative will be what's failed, not everything else. Without the initiative, we still have about 5 other chances for this to work. We have the consumer agencies in France, Germany, and Australia, and possibly help from the BEUC and the UFC Que Choisir, though those are iffier. But all their work is underway. It's out of our hands now. Now, I've heard some say, what if we launch the initiative again? Well, someone else can try that, not me. I tried my absolute damnedest writing off the publicity of the cruise shutdown and barely got halfway. It took a chunk out of my life with almost nothing to show for it.
That's gotta be the.
Way am I going to spearhead something like this again?
This is so sad to hear. He's like, it took a chunk out of my life with nothing to show for it. Is wild. Oh my god. It's doing something because you feel it's right and not expecting anything in return. Okay, like it's impressive. I could see why Ross is defeatist about it, but I either way, I think he should still be proud of what he's done. Like 100%. Like 100%. He did more than most people will ever do in their entire lives. And that's commendable.
I saw this as my only shot. I took it to the best of my ability. That wasn't good enough. I have no reason to think that doing it again will be successful. On the contrary, I think it would do far worse. Now, that doesn't mean I'm being defeatist. I will continue saying yes to almost any opportunity that emerges until July 31st. I have some skepticism, but I am still available for Stop Killing Games until then. Though remember, you don't have to go through me at all. You just have to send people to the initiative. After that, no, I'm done. In fact, I think some people might be surprised just how done I am after July. It's not that I will have changed my mind on game destruction, it's just that there's nothing left after that. So I don't want to waste even more of my life on this. I've paid my dues. My income's dropped significantly since I started this because I haven't had time to make more fun videos which people would rather watch.
Yeah, man. People are like, I need the Freeman's Mind. I do like Ross's Game Dungeon more than Freeman's Mind. I like seeing him like talk about old games. It's just so entertaining. I really do like Ross's. I watch a lot of long form video essays on video games that I'll never play. Ross is definitely one of the best. He is definitely one of the best.
Blame them one bit. So besides being sick of running this thing, I have to make up for lost time so I can pay rent. Plus, believe it or not, I want time to actually play games and not just fight to keep them all the time. I'll still do the bare minimum if it helps. For example, Germany's consumer agency contacted me at one point because they wanted more information on the crew's EULA for their investigation. So I assisted with that. That was surprising because I have no authority on that at all. And I would have thought they would have had better sources.
Was he involved with... He is Freeman's Mind. He is literally Freeman's Mind.
Sources than me, but yeah, I can do pilot light activity like that if it really helps. Just no more campaigning. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against people doing more after July. I just think your odds will be horrendous, and I don't want to dump my time into doomed causes. If the law on game destruction in the EU and Australia was as locked down as it is in the United States, I never would have even started this campaign. Now, I've said this initiative resulted in almost nothing. Well, we did get a little bit. For me personally, I got the feeling of knowing I did everything I could, so I won't have any more nagging doubts like, oh, if only I had tried harder, I could have saved video games. No, I can close the book on that.
Can we get a link to this guy's channel?
I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror after this. That's a plus for me and anyone else who tried their best. About the only other thing I think the initiative accomplished was we inadvertently saved 2 games. This is hearsay again, but according to an insider at the company, Ubisoft announced offline modes for The Crew 2 and Motorfest because they were afraid the European Citizens Initiative would pass and thought this might kill some of the momentum. Ironically, I don't think they needed to have bothered. We were
Wow, it's crazy, man. It's almost like participating in the act can sometimes make a change.
Already losing momentum when they announced it.
I think he's underselling his ability to make a difference, personally, in my opinion.
Because, well, you know why. But not killing games is the whole point of this, and I guarantee you Ubisoft had no end-of-life plans for those games prior to this movement. They were absolutely slated to die. Now, if I could have picked any 2 online games to save, I can't say those would have been my choices.
Is it like Arma now? What is happening?
Something tangible that the initiative changed.
Axis is based
Assuming
on
Ubisoft
real life.
Isn't lying.
Oh, it's
At the time of this video, they
BeamNG.
still
Oh my
haven't
god.
delivered on it yet. So is that it? Is that all the initiative accomplished? Well, without the signatures, sadly, yes, I think so. Now, some people might say, no, we did more than that. We shifted the narrative. So what? My only goal with this was to stop games from being destroyed. All the talk in the world won't fix that without action.
Yeah, I will say Ross understands what makes a difference in political activism, right? Because it's like, it's one thing to talk about something that matters. It's another thing to get actionable things to happen in the system, right? And it's like, obviously it sounds kind of defeatist, but it's like, how many times do you hear about a political movement on Twitter, but it doesn't really do anything in reality? I mean, they're very clearly different things.
Initiative Any victory we get is going to come from one of these 5 paths we opened up. Speaking of which, what should we expect from that? I honestly don't know. I give all of these coin toss odds. I do think it is highly, highly likely Ubisoft is going to get fined for
Dude, they're showing the real accidents in the corner.
something by more than one agency. Don't take my word for it. German channel WBS Legal thinks the same. The problem in their eyes is that Ubisoft shut down the crew with only 3 months' notice, and they should have provided more like 2 years. Yeah, hear me now, quote me later. If all that comes from Stop Killing Games is companies in the EU need to give 2 years' notice before they shut down a game, then I will consider it an abject failure. It won't save games, that wasn't our goal, it'll piss off companies, everybody loses. But that's the risk of making this work under existing law rather than proposing sensible law under the initiative. Fingers crossed the agencies make a better decision than that. Now, since this is a wrap-up video and I don't know what the outcome will be, I might as well present both scenarios. First, if we win and have a clear victory through one of these avenues, oh boy. If I think I have threats and hate mail now, I bet I haven't seen anything yet. I'd like to say whatever happens because of these avenues.
His candor on this is just something.
We didn't write them and never had any authority here. All we could do was report the problem. The European Citizens Initiative is what was written by the movement, and that's what's failing. Now, for people who want my head over this, I doubt they'll care, but I wanted to point that out. I'll say right now, the transition could be bumpy. It all depends on how hard the industry fights it. And yes, it's possible it could end some games on death row prematurely. So games that were designed to die could still die, but after that, almost all games would start being protected. Because I know there's some clown that's going to find one example of a game shutting down early and then use that as proof that enforcing the law is bad, even though the industry was going to kill it anyway. That's the logic I'm expecting. So there could be bumps, but give it 3 to 5 years and it will smooth out, become an industry standard, and then you'll have people who were against it claiming they were for it all along. Hey, remember how there were people speaking out against letting customers refund games before 2014?
Oh my God, do you remember that, guys? Holy shit. Old school drama about video games.
Quiet now? I do.
Yeah, I remember where they're like, what if somebody finishes a game in less than 2 hours and then refunds it on Steam? And now that's like not even like a concern for a lot of people.
I think it'll be a lot like that. So that's if we win. If we lose, in other words, all 5 of these avenues get shot down, well, then things are going to be almost exactly like they are right now. Except then there will be no pretending we have consumer rights. If you're a gamer, it will be codified into law that you're a consumer chattel who doesn't deserve to keep what you buy. Or if you're renting, informed of how long you get to rent. So, cool. The games industry brought back one of feudalism's greatest hits. Now, even that reality I consider preferable to what's going on now, because then we at least know we're legally screwed. Besides the obvious, what drove me crazy about this issue and the reason I started this campaign was because in many countries, no laws were ever passed on this. Nobody voted on this. Companies just started taking away your purchases. Nobody stopped them, and it slowly got normalized. It's felt like a coup. So the idea that hundreds of games are being...
That's a really great word to use, Ross. That's a really great word to use. There was no law put into place, so they just did whatever the fuck they felt like.
Destroyed just because we're letting it happen drove me up the wall. If we're screwed, let's be told that to our faces and not have contradicting laws pretending we have rights. Yeah, that's the one thing I can promise this campaign will deliver, which is answers. There will be no more frog boiling after this. Either the frog hops out of the pot or it's dead. Now, even if we lose 100%, it's not like I'll change my mind on thinking destroying creative works when people want to save them is wrong. I'll probably drift even farther towards trying to save game worlds, at least. I made a video about this sort of thing. I'm optimistic about technology assisting with being able to extract environments from games and port them in the future. So hopefully we can salvage more from the ashes that are getting burned down in games. So that's Stop Killing Games. If you're depending on me to save the initiative, then I think it's going to fail. Skill issue, as they say.
He's so honest about it, dude. I feel so bad, dude. Holy shit. He's so honest and genuine too. It's such an opposition to Thor's behavior, man. Thor's such a piece of shit. Thor is such a piece of shit. I cannot stand him. Okay. I'm gonna do some more Thor coverage. There's a lot more than this. I was expecting to. I should have gone early, like live later tonight, or no, earlier tonight. Excuse me, because I am actually kind of passionate about this one. So I want to know what other people are on about. Okay. Only you Europeans can fuck over Thor. Yeah, if you hate Thor and he annoyed you in this stream, sign that fucking petition. Sign that fucking petition because it is a direct fuck you to Thor. Okay? You want Pirate Software to be owned in the marketplace of ideas? Well, buddy, the marketplace of ideas have come a knocking and you should sign that fucking petition, okay? I hate this guy. I am going to do another Thor stream. I'm going to do another Pirate Software stream. It's going to happen. Okay, but I need to get to bed. All right. All right, I'm going to head out for the evening. All right, I appreciate you all coming. There will be more Pirate Software content, okay? Cuz there was a lot of stuff I didn't cover today. We'll be going over Charlie and Josh Strife Hayes and everything else. Okay, also Josh Strife Hayes, amazing guy, really cool.